Chapter 285. The array shattered. A huge body was directly sent flying. Blood splattered in the air. The thunder war blade directly cut through the sky, scattering the clouds in the sky. In the end, a long trace was left in the sky, which did not dissipate for a long time. Seeing this scene, everyone was shocked. The 12 Dao artifacts fell and Qin Shujian put them all into his storage ring with one hand. He stood in the air with his hands behind his back and slowly descended. On the other side, Lord Six Desires collapsed to the ground. On his huge body, there was a huge gap that almost split him in half. There was still thunder lingering on it, preventing the wound from healing. Until now, Lord Six Desires' eyes were still filled with disbelief. Defeated. He was defeated by a prominent divine realm cultivator. Even if the other party was an Array Dao Grandmaster, he still could not accept it. Not only Lord Six Desires. Even Marquis Baiyun and the others had a slight change in expression. Looking at Qin Shujian, who floated down, a dignified look appeared in their eyes for the first time. Among them, Marquis Baiyun was the clearest about Lord Six Desires' strength. After all, they had fought for so long. In his opinion, Lord Six Desires' strength was no less than the 3rd level of the Celestial Being Realm. He might even be comparable to the 4th level of the Celestial Being Realm. With such strength. But in the end, he was defeated by Qin Shujian, the other party. He was definitely not an ordinary Array Dao Grandmaster. But shock was just shock. After Lord Six Desires was seriously injured, Dan Hao had already struck out with the stone spear in his hand, instantly nailing him to the ground. The stone spear that had a wisp of Zhu Bing's aura. It was the nemesis of evil spirits. Soon, Lord Six Desires was completely wiped out. After killing 3 evil spirits in a row, 1/3 of the stone spear's body was already stained with black. On the other side, Qin Shujian had to admit one thing. Someone stole his kill. Although he tried his best and only seriously injured Lord Immortal, his true essence was also severely depleted. Even the Dao artifact was not light and needed some time to recover, so he had to stop temporarily. He wanted to rest for a while and wait for his true essence to recover a little before attacking Lord Six Desires and harvesting a wave of life source and luck points. In the end, without waiting for him to recover, Dan Hao killed Six Desires' Demon Lord. This made Qin Shujian speechless. However, Dan Hao, on the other hand, was completely oblivious to the fact that he had taken the bait. He took a step forward and looked at Qin Shujian with a smile. "So this is the Array Master of Baiyun Manor? You truly live up to your reputation." Marquis Baiyun introduced them at the right time. "This is General Mingyuan, Shan Hao, General Shan." "General Shan, you flatter me. My insignificant tricks are not worthy of praise." Hearing this, Qin Shujian also looked at this General Mingyuan. From the surface, he looked like a middle-aged man, but in fact, he was not sure how long he had lived. At this moment, the evil demons in the newborn ordinary realm had either been killed or escaped. It could be said that they had cleaned up the place. As for the remaining devil chi, under the surge of the vast spiritual chi in the new area, it was completely dispersed. As for the collapsed mountains and earth veins, however, it was recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. These were the laws of heaven and earth that had not completely receded, and they were repairing the damaged world. A new region was born. This meant that a large number of treasures would be born. However, looking at Marquis Baiyun and the others, those cultivators who had been waiting in the Liang Mountain spiritual realm for a long time did not dare to act rashly. Lord Jinan said, "This region is born and is close to the Liang Mountain spiritual realm. When the laws of heaven and earth stabilize, it will not be long before it merges with the spiritual realm. In my opinion, this region does not need to be named for the time being. After it merges with the spiritual realm, it will be regarded as one of the regions of the Liang Mountain spiritual realm." Naming the region. This was something that almost all new regions had to do. However, there were occasional exceptions. For example, because this region was close to the spiritual realm, and the Liang Mountain spiritual realm was the center of the entire spiritual realm, it would not be long before it was assimilated by the spiritual realm. Therefore, there was no need to name it. In response to Lord Jinnan's words, Marquis Baiyun did not object. There was no need to compete with the other party for the matter of a region. Moreover, what the other party said was also what he thought in his heart. Subsequently, Shan Hao also said, "The matter here has been settled. Lord Jinnan and I will go back to report first. The rest of the matters will be left to Marquis Baiyun to handle. I will handle it myself. Lord Jinnan, General Mingyuan, take care. Goodbye." Dan Hao and the Jinnan king both nodded. Then, they nodded slightly at Qin Shujian as a sign of acknowledgement. Soon after, they flew into the sky and left. As for the treasures in the new region, to them, it was already dispensable. Soon, only Marquis Baiyun, Qin Shujian, and the remaining Chaos Blood Army were left in the region. Sect Master Qin, when do you plan to send people into this region to collect the treasures? Everything will be according to the Marquis' arrangement. In that case, in 3 days, Yuan Zong and the people of the Marquis Baiyun mansion will explore the treasures in this region together. After that, the Marquis Baiyun mansion will no longer interfere in this matter. Okay. Hearing this, Qin Shujian nodded and replied. The first joint exploration, and the second time, Yuan Zong was in charge. This undoubtedly gave Yuan Zong great convenience. After all, regions were born. All the treasures would not appear at the first time. They might not be able to collect everything in the first exploration, so there would be a second and third exploration opportunity. Immediately, Marquis Baiyun flew into the air and looked at the others. He said in a deep voice, "Without my order, no one is allowed to enter this region. Otherwise, they will be killed without mercy." His voice was loud and clear, shaking the surroundings. Hearing this, no one dared to have any objections and remained silent. Seeing this, Marquis Baiyun looked at the Chaos Blood Army and said, "The Chaos Blood Army will continue to suppress this place and prevent anyone from entering. Kill anyone who dares to barge in." "Yes, Sect Master." Zhu Yongqi cupped his fists and bowed his head. "Okay." Marquis Baiyun nodded slightly and then looked at Qin Shujian. "Sect Master Qin, if you have time, you can come to the Marquis Baiyun mansion for a chat. I have other things to deal with, so I will leave first." "Take care, Marquis." Qin Shujian cupped his fists and replied. Then, Marquis Baiyun flew away. Seeing this, Qin Shujian looked at Zhu Yongqi and asked, "General Zhu, do you need Yuan Zong to send people to assist you?" "Sect Master Qin, don't worry. The Chaos Blood Army is enough. If you have any problems, you can send a message to Yuan Zong." "Sure. Goodbye." Hearing this, Qin Shujian didn't say anything else and also flew away. Although more than half of the Chaos Blood Army had been killed or injured. But he saw an iron-blooded fighting spirit in Zhu Yongqi and the others. If anyone dared to underestimate them, this remaining army would definitely erupt with a power that would shock everyone. After Qin Shujian left, Zhu Yongqi directly sent people to guard the border and spread the divine martial arts realm cultivator's divine sense to prevent anyone from taking the opportunity to sneak in. Although the Chaos Blood Army was weak in front of the demons, but that was only in front of a diviner realm cultivator. Apart from this point, Li Mu with a divine martial arts realm cultivator like Zhu Yongqi, even if they didn't form a military formation, they were still comparable to a large sect. It was enough to deter many people. Not to mention, Marquis Baiyun stood behind the Chaos Blood Army. So, when they saw the Chaos Blood Army guarding the border of the two areas, some cultivators who wanted to enter the new area hesitated for a long time and turned around to leave. At the same time, everyone knew that the news of today's battle would probably spread very quickly. Not to mention Marquis Baiyun and the others. Whether it was Marquis Baiyun or King Jinan, they were all famous experts in the great Zhao dynasty. But Qin Shujian was different. Originally, his reputation as a formation grandmaster was the greatest deterrent because he easily killed the experts of the 8 sects. As for the saying that he was comparable to a diviner, it was just a legend that had been passed down for a long time. In the era when Bayun Mansion's formations declined, a formation grandmaster hadn't appeared for 1 or 2,000 years. But now it was completely different. At the border of the Liang Mountain Spirit Domain, he set up a formation grandmaster and then fought with a diviner realm demon. After a long fierce battle, the formation was broken. Qin Shujian was unscathed, but the diviner realm demon was seriously injured and killed by Dan Hao in one blow. Such a battle record had made everyone understand. A formation grandmaster was comparable to a diviner realm cultivator. And this formation grandmaster of Yuan Zone was more terrifying than an ordinary diviner realm cultivator. After all, other diviner realm cultivators could at most fight to a draw with the demon. If they wanted to seriously injure the demon, only experts like Marquis Bayun, who had been famous for a long time, could do it. Similarly, the formation masters who were originally staying in Cold Mountain City were in an uproar when they saw Qin Shujian setting up a terrifying formation and severely injuring a celestial being realm cultivator. In their eyes, this was a true formation grandmaster. Originally, the news that there would be a competition in Liang Mountain City had already spread. But now, the momentum had become even greater, and it was faintly showing the momentum of spreading to the 13 prefectures of the great Zhao dynasty. As for the other side, after Qin Shujian returned to Yuan Zone, he stayed in the courtyard for a day and didn't come out. The next day, there was a new mission in the mission hall. A bounty mission. And the bounty was for an inhuman. Such a thing didn't mean much to the other disciples of Yuan Zone, but to the players it caused quite a stir. An NPC wanted a player. This could be considered the first time in history. Although the player's name wasn't shown on the bounty, Qin Shujian drew the images of these people based on his memory at that time. At the same time, everyone who accepted the mission would receive a tracking token. Those who held the tracking token would be within 3 miles of the mission target. And there was a subtle space array set up inside. As long as they activated their vital essence, they would be able to record a short video. And this, it was also the basis for submitting the mission. As for the mission reward, it was also extremely generous. Killing a person would give 100 contribution points each time. Among the 7 people on the bounty, the first 100 times each person was killed would be able to submit the mission. As for after 100 times, it wouldn't count. Chapter 286. After seeing the specific content of the mission, the players were in an uproar again. TSK, this is forcing these people to their deaths. Lu Dazhong looked at the mission above and shook his head while gloating. Everyone dies 100 times. This is even more miserable than dying white. Hearing that, the surrounding players expressed their agreement with the current realm of the players. Dying a dozen times was enough to reset their realm to 0. If they were killed 100 times in a row, it would not be as simple as resetting their realm to 0. They would probably have a mental breakdown. Damn, how did these 7 people offend the sect master? They are actually wanted to this extent. This is the first time I've seen such a bounty. Ruthless. In the mission hall, no player directly called the Liangshan gang leader. After all, this kind of address was enough in private. On the surface, they still had to respectfully call him the sect master. Some players did not understand. However, some players who saw Fu Moyan and the others sneered and said, "These people sneaked an attack on Marquis Bayun's army and then let an evil spirit break through the blockade. In the end, the sect master set up a formation to intercept this evil spirit and seriously injure it." Hearing that, the others were also enlightened. If this was the case, then there was really nothing wrong with the bounty. The sect was right here, but you still let the evil spirit out to cause a demon disaster. Who else would you reward if not you? Hey, 1 kill for 100 contribution points. This is much higher than the reward of doing the mission. Someone looked at the mission above and then accepted it without hesitation. At the same time, when accepting the mission, a tracking token was also directly given to the person who accepted the mission for free. This kind of almost zero cost and high profit thing, no one would refuse. Immediately, all the disciples of Yuan sect, including some internal and external deacons, all accepted this mission. And after receiving the mission, some players had already posted the portraits of Fu Moyan and the others on the forum, threatening to inform them if they had any news and would also give them a generous reward. Now on the forum, the pinned post was the video of Marquis Baiyun and the others fighting against the evil spirit. For the players, it was the first time they had seen a celestial realm cultivator fight. They were also shocked by the power that could destroy heaven and earth. And when they saw the evil spirit, it was the same. In the past, the evil devils that had broken through the seal in the ordinary realm had never had the chance to display their full strength. How could they display their gigantic bodies like in the video? As for Qin Shujian, because of the formation, even if the players recorded the scene, they would not be able to see the scene inside. However, the scene where the saber broke the array formation and severely injured the evil spirit was still recorded by someone. There was no need to describe the shock he felt. It was different from other NPCs or bosses. The Langshan Stronghold Master was a boss that had accompanied the players since the beginner's village. In the end, while the players were still stuck at the true martial realm, this boss was able to slash apart demons of the celestial realm. This was a huge gap. This made many players suspect that perhaps the other party was the real player, and they were the NPCs in the game. However, the news that Qin Shujian was the reincarnation of a powerful being spread. All the players agreed with this news. Originally, the forums were already flooded with news of what had happened in the Liang Mountain Spirit region. In the end, it didn't take long for many more posts to appear. All the titles started with a bounty, which immediately attracted the attention of many people. On the other side, after placing a bounty on Fu Moyan and the others, Qin Shujian put this matter aside for the time being. The reason why he did this, it was because he was really angry this time. It was not as simple as the other party attacking the Chaos Blood Army. It was also because the other party intended to let the evil spirits harm the Liang Mountain Spirit region and destroy the foundation of the Yuan sect. For Qin Shujian, destroying the foundation of the Yuan sect was no different from cutting off his source of life and destroying his Tao path. This was a hatred that would not end until one of them was dead. Qin Shujian knew that the players would not die. However, for him, even if he could not completely kill those players, he wanted to turn them white and let Fu Moyan and the others experience the fear of being dominated by the game. Before Fu Moyan and the others died, he had already left a mark on these people. It was the means of a formation grandmaster. Qin Shujian was confident that even if the other party revived, they would not be able to get rid of it. As for those tracking tokens, they were used to detect the means he left behind. In the Qingwu Hall, at this moment, the elders of the 6 factions were gathered. Qin Shujian's gaze fell on Yo Dali, who was sitting at the back. This ox demon had become stronger than last time, as the Yuan sect was promoted to a 5th grade faction. Ox Demon Lord's realm was also promoted to the 9th level of the true martial realm, almost reaching the peak of the true martial realm. But now, he sensed the aura of a spiritual god on this ox demon. Although this aura was not complete, it also represented that Nyo Dali was at the stage of breaking through to the spiritual god realm. In the span of a few months, from the 9th level of the true martial realm to about to break through to the spiritual god realm, such talent and strength gave Qin Shujian a new understanding of this ox demon. As for Nyo Dali, he was sitting in his seat with his eyelids drooping, looking drowsy. If it were not for Qin Shujian's order, he really did not want to attend the meeting. For Nyo Dali, he did not join the Yuan sect to have a place to sleep peacefully. As for the others in the Yuan sect, most of them looked down on this ox demon and the other beasts in the demon vein. If it were any other beasts being looked down upon like this, they would probably be angry. However, Nyo Dali did not say anything about this. In his opinion, this situation was quite good. Everyone looked down on him, so they would not disturb him. As long as he could sleep peacefully. For Nyo Dali, it was fine if they looked down on him. Anyway, he would not lose anything. But no matter what. After becoming an elder of the demon vein, sleeping was indeed more comfortable than when he was alone in the ox demon cave. At least with the Yuan sect's name hanging, no one would dare to plot against him. Thinking of this, he seemed to have some doubts about the taste of sleep. However, just as Neodali sat down to rest for a while, a chill emerged on his body, making him shiver involuntarily. When he looked up, he saw nothing. On the other side, Qin Shujian also withdrew his gaze from Neodali and thought to himself, 93 points of loyalty. It seems that this ox demon is quite loyal to the Yuan sect. Just now, he took a look at Neodali's loyalty. 93 points. It was already considered very high. Even with the stability of the Yuan sect and the general increase in loyalty, there were very few people who could reach more than 90 points of loyalty. After putting the matter of this ox demon aside for the time being, Qin Shujian said, "This time a new area has been born. Tomorrow, our sect and the people of the Baiyun Marquis Mansion will enter and explore it together. However, the name list of the people who will enter this time has not been decided yet. We will follow your decision, Sect Master." Almost all the elders cupped their hands and replied. There wasn't a single person present who didn't want to enter the new area. After all, there were many treasures in a new area. If they were lucky, if they could get 1 or 2 treasures, it would be a great benefit. However, although they thought about it, they could not show it on their faces. Hearing this, Qin Shujian also nodded with satisfaction. After pondering for a while, he said, "I plan to let everyone in the Dimension sect have a chance to enter this time, but the premise is that everyone has to pay 5,000 contribution points. Regardless of whether it is an elder or an outer or inner disciple. As long as everyone pays enough contribution points, they will be able to get a place to enter the new area. After entering, any gains will belong to the individual, but the sect will buy them at the same price." Speaking of this, he paused, and without looking at the others' expressions, he continued, "But there is one thing. If you get an innate spiritual item, you have to hand it over to the sect. As a reward, each innate spiritual item can be exchanged for 20,000 contribution points. If someone secretly hides an innate spiritual item, once found out, not only will he be expelled from the sect, but he will also be punished to death." Hearing this, the others' expressions did not change much. To them, innate spiritual items were equivalent to spiritual weapons. They had no other use. As for the 5,000 contribution points, among the elders present, who did not have some foundation, the ones who should be worried about the 5,000 contribution points should be the disciples who lacked contribution points. Therefore, after Qin Shujian finished speaking, Su Yuanming cupped his hands and replied, "Sect Master, what you said is excellent. I second it. I second it too. I second it." The others also opened their mouths to reply. As for Neodali, he also replied with one sentence. After discussing and coming to a decision, the next step would be to pass on this decision to the others. After receiving the news, Yuan sect was in an uproar again. 5,000 contribution points. For the vast majority of players, this was a huge cost. At this stage, under the temptation of Dao artifacts, almost all the disciples of Yuan sect wanted to accumulate contribution points to get a Dao artifact. However, the quota to enter the new area also affected people's hearts. Everyone knew that there were many treasures in the new area, and there was no lack of innate spiritual items and other precious things. If they were lucky enough, if they could find any one of them, if they took it out to exchange for contribution points, they would not lose much. Not to mention, if they could get an innate spiritual item, they could exchange it for 20,000 contribution points. This meant that, if they were lucky enough to get an innate spiritual item, then this trip to the new area would definitely be profitable. Basically, they would get a profit of 15,000 contribution points. Therefore, when the other elders passed on the news, Elderly was shocked. As long as the contribution points reached 5,000, 95% of them chose to spend 5,000 contribution points in exchange for a quota to enter the new area. Only a very small number of cautious people. They did not dare to risk their contribution points. After all, if they did not gain anything, then they would lose everything. Chapter 287. The new district was extremely vast. It was not much different from the ordinary realm. The only difference was, it was probably because the laws of heaven and earth were unstable and the shackles had not been completely formed. The next day, the people sent by the Northern Cloud Marquee Mansion to explore the new district had finally arrived. Besides Xiaohong, the leader was Xiaohong. There was also Su Mingyang, who was at the God Martial Arts realm. For this person, Qin Shujian was no stranger to him. After all, he still had some impression of him during the battle in the desolate ordinary realm. After seeing Qin Shujian, the two also cupped their hands and greeted. Sect Master Qin! The two of you came quite early. Qin Shujian also cupped his hands and responded. Subsequently, he looked at the 30 people behind Xiaohong and asked, Are there only so few people from the Northern Cloud Marquee Mansion this time? 30 people are enough. Xiaohong smiled and then looked at Qin Shujian, who came alone, and asked, How many people is Yuanzong going to send? Maybe a little more. Qin Shujian suddenly did not know how to answer. In advance, both sides did not discuss how many people each side would send. In the end, he did not know that the Northern Cloud Marquee had only sent 30 people. In this way, things were a little awkward. Xiaohong, who did not know Qin Shujian's thoughts, had a faint smile on his face and said, It's okay. The district is vast, and there's no harm in having more people explore. Speaking of this, he paused and said, But there are some things that I still want to make clear to Sect Master Qin. There's no harm in saying it. There are many treasures in the Earth domain, and it is unavoidable to fight for them. However, the grudges in the new Earth domain will be forgotten after we leave. However, the relationship between Yuan Sect and the Northern Cloud Marquee Mansion has been ruined. What does Sect Leader Qin think? Xiaohong said with a solemn expression. The current Yuan Zone was not like before. With an array master with the battle strength of a heavenly being, the Northern Cloud Marquee Mansion did not want to ruin the relationship between both sides because of some small matter. After all, a heavenly being was rare. An array master comparable to a heavenly being was even rarer. In particular, Qin Shujian was not an ordinary array master. Thinking of what the Marquis said, Xiaohong understood. The person in front of him had probably reached the peak of the first level of the Grand Master realm. If he took another step forward, his strength would probably undergo another terrifying transformation. Hearing this, Qin Shujian also nodded and said, This Qin naturally agrees. The Baiyun Marquee residents didn't want to become enemies with Yuan Zong. Yuan Zong also didn't want to offend the Baiyun Marquee Manor. Currently, in Baiyun Manor, on the surface, Marquis Baiyun represented the imperial court in suppressing everything. In the cultivation world, the Yuan sect had the status of an overlord, suppressing many sects and forces. If the two sides became enemies, if that was the case, then it would involve a lot of things. On the contrary, if they maintained their current relationship, it would be beneficial to both of them in the future. Just as the two sides were chatting, not long after, a group of people came over in a grandiose manner. Xiaohong could not help but be startled when he saw the densely packed group of people arriving. Moreover, all of them were wearing the uniform of the Yuan sect. Soon after, he asked, Why is your sect here? Cough, cough. These are the people from my sect who have entered the new area. Qin Shujian coughed softly, looking a little embarrassed. Hearing this, the faces of the people from the Marquis Baiyun Manor froze. Su Mingyang asked with a slightly stiff expression, May I know how many people the Yuan sect has sent this time? Probably less than 3,000. Probably? Less than 3,000? Su Mingyang and Xiaohong suddenly felt a little stuffy in their chests. They even had the illusion that they were about to suffocate. Their Marquis Bayun Manor had only sent a little over 30 people. The Yuan sect had sent almost 3,000 people. In comparison, the two of them realized that they were like fools. They originally thought that the Yuan sect would only send a few dozen or 100 people and specially select some elite disciples to enter. In the end, how naive! They were too naive. This was the only thought that arose in the minds of Xiaohong and Su Mingyang. As for the 30 or so people behind them who were about to enter the new area, their faces were stiff. When they saw the vast group of people, they already felt weak in their hearts. However, the only thing worth rejoicing about was, although the Yuan sect had many people, most of them were cultivators at the spirit god realm, or below. On the other hand, the people from the Marquis Bayun Manor were basically at the airborne realm, and the prominent sage realm. After a long time, Xiaohong finally calmed down. He coughed lightly and said, "Sect Master Qin, there's no need for cultivators at the god martial realm and above to enter the new area this time. After all, the new area has been born, and the laws are stabilizing. If there's too much damage, it's easy to cause the area to collapse." In the previous battle, a lot of the power of the laws of heaven and earth had been consumed. If a few more battles were to occur, the area would definitely collapse. It was like this situation. It wasn't like it hadn't happened before. The collapse of every area was basically a permanent loss. Therefore, there was gradually an additional rule. As the laws of the area stabilized, the cultivation of those who could enter the area would gradually decrease. When the shackles were completely formed, there would no longer be any restrictions. I understand. What happened after that was much simpler. The people from both sides arrived at the border of the area, where the Chaos Blood Army happened to be stationed. Zhu Yongqi was also stunned when he saw the people who came in a mighty manner. If he didn't see Qin Shujian, Xiaohong, and the others in the lead, he would have thought that it was an army of cultivators who intended to break through the Chaos Blood Army's formation. "General Zhu! Sect Master Qin!" Zhu Yongqi also cupped his fists in return and then nodded to greet Xiaohong and Su Mingyang. He was a member of the army. He was also a great cultivator of the god martial arts realm. On a certain level, his status was higher than Xiaohong and Su Mingyang's. However, because both of them were by Marquis Bayun's side, they were considered his trusted subordinates. Therefore, Zhu Yongqi gave them face. As for Xiaohong and Su Mingyang, they also returned the same greeting. Immediately after, Zhu Yongqi ordered the Chaos Blood Army to make way and not to block the people from both sides from entering the new area. At the same time, Qin Shujian also turned to look at the people of Yuan sect and said in a deep voice, "This time, the main purpose of entering is to collect treasures. Don't fight at will, and don't kill for no reason. If you have any grudges, don't mention it again after coming out of the area. In addition, you can enter for a maximum of 3 days. If you don't come out within the time limit, you will be punished according to the sect rules." "We understand." The people of Yuan sect all nodded in response. On the other side, Xiaohong also used similar words to explain to the people of Marquis Bayun's mansion. Subsequently, the people from both sides directly entered the new area. After everyone had entered, Yi Zichen stood up. Zhu Yongqi said, "Sect Master Qin, according to Marquis Bayun's order, after both sides enter the new area, our Chaos Blood Army should withdraw. I'm afraid the following matters will be handled by Yuan sect. This time, we've troubled General Zhu. If you have the chance in the future, you can visit Yuan sect at any time," Qin Shujian said with a smile. He didn't find it strange that the Chaos Blood Army was withdrawing. After all, the Marquis Bayun's mansion only sent people in to collect treasures for the first time. As for the following matters, Yuan sect had full authority. In this way, naturally, it was impossible to give up the treasure land and help to send people to guard it. With Yuan sect's current strength, even without the Chaos Blood Army, it was enough to occupy an area by itself. Speaking of this, he asked again, "When will the Chaos Blood Army start to withdraw?" "They will withdraw tomorrow. At that time, I hope Yuan sect will send people to take over." "Okay." Qin Shujian nodded. Then, he looked at Xiao Hong and Suming Yang and said with a faint smile, "Instead of waiting here, why don't the two of you come with me to Yuan sect for a visit? There's no harm in coming back in 3 days. Then I'll bother you. Please! Please!" In the demon abyss. The space suddenly cracked and a huge demon god covered in blood crawled out of the crack and appeared in front of all the evil spirits. The sudden change. All the sinister devils were stunned. Demon god Azura. Didn't he go to the great thousand world? Why is he back? He tore the space apart and came back without an arm. It seems that he encountered a powerful enemy. In this case, the 3 demons who entered the domain gate shouldn't have a good ending. Many of the demons were mocking him. Then, their eyes were filled with greed as they looked at demon god Azura. Demon god! It was an existence that was completely different from ordinary demons. Only the most powerful demons in the demon abyss were qualified to be crowned with the title of demon god. But at the same time, these powerful demon gods contained the power of flesh and blood. It was an irresistible temptation to other demons. If it was in the past, with the demon god's terrifying strength, no demon would dare to have any evil thoughts. But now, looking at the heavily injured Azura demon god, many evil demons had different thoughts. The demon tribe. They were born to be violent and kill. They only followed the law of the jungle. Moreover, they were the embodiment of the law of the jungle. Demon god Azura naturally noticed the strange behavior of the other demons. Initially, he had already been angered by the Marquis of Northern Cloud, so he was already filled with rage. Now that he had encountered such a fortunate event, he was immediately enraged. Boom! He reached out and grabbed an unprepared demon. Then, he put it into his mouth. After a few bites, he chewed and swallowed. His scarlet eyes scanned the other demons. "You lowly things dare to covet me? Now is the time to devour you and help me recover from my injuries." After he finished speaking, the Azura demon god attacked again, charging towards another weaker evil demon. Such a ferocious method and his overwhelming strength. It also intimidated some of the demons. However, more demons saw through demon god Azura's strength and attacked angrily. Demon god Azura is severely injured. Now is the time to claim the demon god's position. Kill! In an instant, more than 10 demons attacked. The weak ones were just heavenly beings. The strong ones were not inferior to Demon Lord Six's desires. Faced with so many opponents, the Azura demon god's ferocious nature was completely aroused, and he began to fight with the other demons. Suddenly, an earth-shattering battle had already begun in the Devil Abyss. Chapter 288. To the other demons, the demon god was their goal. If they wanted to rely on time to become a demon god, it was probably impossible in their entire lives. This was a change in strength. It was also a difference in status. If they wanted to become a demon god, they might need thousands or tens of thousands of years. But if it was still a status, it was not something that could be achieved with time. So, the fastest way to rise in status was to devour a demon god. It was just that the demon god lived in the depths of the demon abyss and was extremely powerful. Ordinary demons could not compare. Therefore, the possibility of devouring a demon god was very small. But it was different now. The Azura demon god forcefully tore through space and returned. His body was severely injured and his strength had dropped to a freezing point. Although his strength had dropped, the demon god was still extremely terrifying. But at least, the other demons saw the hope of devouring a demon god. Such an opportunity. There might not be a second time even if they waited for thousands or tens of thousands of years. So, no matter how powerful the Azura demon god was, there were still demons who attacked the demon god with all their might. The battle in the demon abyss was endless. The demon gods in the depths of the demon abyss watched coldly as the Azura demon god was besieged. None of the demon gods helped. The demons. They were indifferent by nature. To them, one less demon god was better. They could absorb more demonic aura in the depths of the demon abyss. As for those demons, if they really split the Azura demon god's flesh and blood, they could not directly become a demon god. On the contrary, once the Azura demon god's flesh and blood were devoured, he would definitely lose his status when he was resurrected. So, the demon gods in the depths of the demon abyss were happy to see this. However, this time, a total of 4 demons walked out of the demon abyss, including a demon god. Great Zhao should not have guessed that a demon god would walk out of a new area. What did the Azura demon god encounter that made him want to escape? To us, the threat of the vast 1,000 domains is the existence of Zhu Bing. Great Zhao must have invited Zhu Bing. Ancestral armaments, such things should not exist in the first place. As the demon gods conversed with their divine wills, a terrifying power rose from the depths of the demon abyss. It was like a desolate and ancient aura, instantly causing the demonic aura to surge. It also caused the other demons who were fighting to stop. How dare you! You're still trying to struggle after falling into the abyss. A monstrous demonic aura erupted, forcefully suppressing this force. In an instant, it was as if several terrifying phantoms had appeared, but they quickly disappeared. It was also at this moment. After a brief moment of shock, the battle between the evil demon and the Azura demon god began again. In the new area, many disciples of Yuan's sect were exploring inside. Although most of the people who entered this time were players, there were also quite a number of locals. After entering the Earth domain, those who knew each other would form a small team to explore. Or he was confident. Then, he left alone. 2,000 to 3,000 people entered the new area and quickly spread out. This time, we have to at least find some Khanate spirit items to break even. Otherwise, this trip to this new area will be a huge loss. It's said that Khanate spiritual objects are the most abundant in the newly born regions. It shouldn't be too difficult to find them. Pay attention to your surroundings and be careful of other people's sneak attacks. Lin Jia walked at the front, and beside him were 3 other members of the Lin family. They were from the same clan previously, and now they were even fellow disciples of the same sect. Originally, the Lin family had been destroyed. Lin Jia's goal in joining Yuan's sect was to take revenge on the Celestial sect one day. In the end, before his strength could rise to the point where he could take revenge, the Celestial sect took the first step and destroyed his sect's 1,000 years of foundation. The Celestial sect was destroyed. Sect leader Zhao Zunji died in the Immortal Plains. Naturally, the original hatred also dissipated. Now, to Lin Jia, revenge was no longer the most important thing. His current wish was to increase his strength and rebuild the Lin family. As Yuan's sect was promoted to a level 5 force, he himself was also raised to the level 7 physical aura of the true martial realm. Such strength. Actually, it was not considered weak. However, to rebuild the Lin family of the past, such strength was far from enough. A family in the spiritual region. At least there must be a spirit martial realm cultivator. The Lin family of the past. There was even an ancestor of the prominent divine realm. Therefore, Lin Jia was clear about his current strength and how far he was from rebuilding the Lin family of the past. However, in order to increase his strength, besides relying on his own talent, he also needed to have enough contribution points. The Dao artifact in the weapon hall. He wanted it as well. However, not everyone could take out 5,000 contribution points. In the end, only 4 of the 6 people from the Lin family entered here. Lin Jia walked in front and slightly covered his chest with his palm. There was the fragment of the Lin family's half-step Dao artifact. It was qualified to be promoted to a Dao artifact. It must be an innate spiritual item. The fragment of the half-step Dao artifact was also an incomplete innate spiritual item. Khanate spirit objects would definitely sense each other. Now, he was relying on this sense to search for traces of Khanate spirit objects that had been born in this world. The new area was vast. It would take a lot of time for a physical or a cultivator to cross it with full strength. Along the way, Lin Jia and the others had already encountered 5 or 6 groups of people. Most of these people were from the same sect. Only one group was from the Marquis Mansion. To this, Lin Jie did not relax at all. In front of treasures, even if they were from the same sect, there was a possibility of backstabbing. He was not naive to think that the people of Yuan's sect would definitely help each other. Anyone who had such a thought, either they were dead, or they lived miserably. All of a sudden, Lin Jie felt that the fragment of the half-step Dao artifact in his chest was a little warm. His calm face suddenly became excited. He said, "There must be an innate spiritual item around. Let's search carefully." "Really?" The other 3 people from the Lin family were also excited. Innate spiritual item. It was worth 20,000 contribution points. As long as they got this item, this trip to the new area would be worth it. And how long had it been? If he was able to obtain a connate spirit item so quickly, he would definitely be able to obtain something in the next 2 days. Just as Lin Jie and the others were searching around, there was already a dispute in the area. After all, there were many treasures here, and many people had entered. In front of such a large number of people, it was not difficult to find a treasure. The treasure was born. It meant that there would be competition. Even if they were from the same sect, it was nothing in front of the treasure. From time to time, attack waves would spread and attract attention. To this, whether it was the people from the Marquis Mansion or Qin Shujian, they were already mentally prepared. In the courtyard, the 3 of them sat down. Xiaohong felt the rich heaven and earth spirit qi around them and couldn't help but smile. Array Grandmasters are really amazing. This method of gathering heaven and earth spirit qi is really amazing. It's just a small trick. It's nothing. Qin Shuyan smiled faintly. There was already spiritual tea in front of the 3 of them. During this time, he had been preparing to deal with the demons. After the demons were dealt with, he would deal with the follow-up matters. Until now. Only then was he free. After hearing Xiaohong's words, Qin Shujian had already planned to set up an array in the sect in a day or 2 to draw the heaven and earth spirit qi over and completely turn this place into a holy land for cultivation. The 3rd level spiritual tea is not bad. Su Mingyang took a sip of the spiritual tea, but his gaze fell on the osmanthus tree. He smiled and said, "If I'm not wrong, this osmanthus tree should also be a spiritual item. Why didn't sect leader Qin use this to make tea instead of this 3rd level spiritual tea?" While talking, Su Mingyang looked away. At the same time, he realized his slip of the tongue and said, "Sect leader Qin, please don't misunderstand. Sect Master Qin, please don't misunderstand." This Su spoke without thinking. "I do like spirit tea, so I hope you don't take offense. Consecrator Su is joking. But I didn't think of using osmanthus to make tea. You've reminded me." Qin Shujian shook his head and laughed. Then, his gaze fell on the osmanthus tree. The osmanthus fragrance wafted. Using flowers as tea was not a strange thing in his previous life. It was just that he had little contact with the tea ceremony, so he really didn't think about it for a while. Now, with Su Mingyang's reminder, he immediately poured the spiritual tea in the teapot. As he stretched out his hand, he saw the true essence spread out and the osmanthus flower fell. Then, Qin Shujian placed the osmanthus flower in the teapot. After pouring in boiling water, there was a spiritual fragrance that overflowed, making people feel relaxed and happy. The spiritual tea was poured. Su Mingyang first took a small sip, then drank it all in one gulp. He praised, "Good tea! This tree has entered the spiritual object stage. The osmanthus flower on the tree, soaked in spiritual energy, is not much weaker than a 5th-grade spiritual tea. If it grows up in the future, I'm afraid it can be called a top spiritual object." Xiaohong nodded and said. Hearing this, Qin Shujian was in a good mood. Then, the 3 of them chatted while drinking tea. All of a sudden, Xiaohong put down the teacup in his hand, looked at Qin Shujian, and said seriously, "I heard that sect leader Qin has issued a bounty for those who attacked the Chaos Blood Army." "That's right. Our Baiyun Marquis Mansion has issued a bounty for this matter. Even if those mutants can hide, there is no possibility of them escaping. Xiao Hong nodded, but his face was extremely solemn. After saying this, he paused for a while and then continued. Those mutants must have a force behind them. Not everyone can condense the heavenly decree. It seems that someone wants to take this opportunity to make the entire Beiyun mansion chaotic. Hearing this, Qin Shujian did not immediately reply. The other party's words were not secret. As long as one was slightly normal, one would be able to understand the key points. However, the only problem was, which faction did this to those players? After all, the heavenly decree could only be condensed by a great cultivator of the heavenly realm. This kind of range was instantly reduced by a lot. Steward Xiao, do you think the person who did it is Marquis Qianshan? Chapter 289. There was a demon disaster in the Liang Mountain Spirit region. The disaster was not just limited to Beiyun Mansion. If the demon disaster happened, it would be a disaster that could not be ignored for the entire Great Xiao. As a result, the ones who would benefit the most were the rebels. But at the same time, there were many people who dared to rebel, but most of them were small and could not achieve much. There was only one rebel force that could condense a heavenly decree and have a heavenly cultivation. That was Thousand Mountains Mansion. It should be Marquis Qianshan. Xiao Hong nodded and continued. Sect Master Qin is now a Formation Grand Master and a member of Beiyun Mansion. I'm afraid Marquis Qianshan has already set his eyes on Yuan Sect. After all, Marquis Qianshan was able to maintain the situation in Thousand Mountains Mansion because of the existence of two Formation Grandmasters. Now that Sect Master Qin had exposed his Array Grandmaster realm, if Marquis Qianshan was worried that Sect Master Qin would side with the Imperial Court, it was not impossible for him to secretly kill him. So I hope Sect Master Qin can be more cautious during this period and not fall into the trap of a villain. Hearing this, Qin Shujian furrowed his brows imperceptibly. Xiao Hong's words were not without reason. It could be seen from the fact that those players used the heavenly decree to sneak attack the Chaos Blood Army. In Marquis Qianshan's mind, he might have the idea of using the power of the demons to destroy Yuan Sect. Even if the heavenly decree was not aimed at the Chaos Blood Army but at him, Qin Shujian, could he really resist it? Thinking of the heavenly decree that was as fast as lightning, and the power that was enough to seriously injure a heavenly cultivation, Qin Shujian's face suddenly darkened, because he realized he really could not resist it. Even though he had become a Formation Grandmaster and could create a formation with a wave of his hand, no matter how fast he could set up the formation, he still needed a short time to react. It was impossible for him to be fully alert all the time to prevent others from taking advantage of this opportunity to launch a sneak attack. In other words, if the heavenly decree was aimed at him, it would be difficult for him to resist it. He would not die. It was also a serious injury. Suppressing the chill in his heart, Qin Shujian cupped his hands together and said, Steward Xiao, don't worry. I already understand what is going on. These little thieves won't have the chance to succeed. Until now. Only then did he realize that his strength was still a little too weak compared to the top powerhouses. Qin Shujian had already made up his mind. From today onwards, a third-grade golden lotus would never leave his body. A Dao artifact could protect its owner. If someone were to launch a sneak attack on him, even if it was a diviner cultivator, he would still be able to defend himself with his third-grade golden lotus. This way, he would have enough time to react and wouldn't fall into a dangerous situation. Su Mingyang also said, but this time, Marquis Qianshan miscalculated. He didn't expect Sect Master Qin's strength to be so terrifying. With just a formation, he could even severely injure an evil demon. This kind of strength really makes this Su blush with shame. These words. It was not entirely a compliment. When he had first met him in the Lingxi True Dominion, he had only been a true martial realm cultivator. If he had not been the Protectorate Lord of the True Dominion, he would not have taken a second look at him. When he truly caught his eye. Moreover, it was his performance in the desolate, ordinary realm. Now, it had been less than a year. Qin Shujian already had a technique that was comparable to a diviner cultivator. His strength had also reached the prominent sage realm and was only one step away from breaking through to the divine martial realm. Fortunately, Su Mingyang knew that Qin Shujian was the reincarnation of an almighty. Although he was shocked, he wasn't provoked. If he wasn't the reincarnation of an almighty, he should have doubted whether he had lived a dog's life for the past few hundred years. Qin Shujian didn't pay much attention to Su Mingyang's words. His attention was now on Marquis Qianshan. Humans were harmless, tigers were evil. Tigers hurt humans. As long as some things existed, it meant that there was no possibility of peaceful coexistence. Other things aside, if he were in Marquis Qianshan's shoes, and Beiyun Prefecture had a new array Grand Master who was close to the imperial court, he would also be wary of him and would want to get rid of him as soon as possible. On the other side, as the news of the 3 evil demons being killed and a fiend celestial tearing through space and escaping spread, Qin Shujian's name once again resounded in the North Cloud Manor. Or rather, it really spread throughout the 13 prefectures of the great Zhao dynasty. A large array severely injured a diviner cultivator. This wasn't any trick, it was a display of true strength. Such a battle record, it was enough to make everyone take it seriously. Trash! Marquis Qianshan's eyes flashed with anger as he looked at the information in his hand. He didn't expect Fu Moyan and the others really failed. Originally, the appearance of 4 evil demons was already a great chance of winning. In the end, the imperial court sent out 2 diviner cultivators, and they were the South Garden King and Dan Hao, who were experts in the diviner realm. Marquis Beiyun's strength was even more unexpected. He didn't fall behind at all when he fought a fiend celestial above the 7th level with his own strength. In addition, there was a top array Dao Grandmaster. All kinds of unpredictable things added together made Marquis Qianshan's plan fail in the end. 3 evil demons and a fiend celestial didn't cause a demon disaster. Xiao Chengfeng hit it well. Marquis Qianshan's face was cold as he crushed the information in his hand. He didn't expect it either. Marquis Beiyun's strength had reached such a level. However, what really made him angry was Fu Moyan and the others. This time, so many powerful evil demons appeared. Even if Marquis Beiyun hid his strength, it was impossible to not cause any commotion. The reason was, or the other party used his diviner decree in the wrong place. Instead of sneaking up on the Chaos Blood Army, it was better to take this opportunity to kill that array Dao Grandmaster. In this way, even if the demon disaster didn't happen, the loss of an array Dao Grandmaster in Beiyun Mansion would be a great benefit to him. Even if he used the diviner decree to sneak up on Marquis Beiyun and create an opportunity for that fiend celestial, he wouldn't end up in such a situation. Now, not only did he lose a diviner decree, he didn't gain anything at all. Originally, Marquis Qianshan had secretly mobilized troops and generals. When the demon disaster broke out and attracted the attention of the Great Zhao, he would immediately attack the Great Zhao's city in Qianshan Mansion. In this way, he would have the opportunity to take the entire Beiyun Mansion under his control. But the result now, he had no choice but to give up this plan. I thought they were a few good seedlings, but I didn't expect them to be such trash. Marquis Qianshan's face was cold as he shouted, "Men!" As soon as he finished speaking, a guard pushed the door open and came in. He lowered his head and cupped his fists. "What orders do you have, Marquis?" "Pass down my order. Put a bounty on Fu Moyan and the other 6 mutants. I want them to have no place in Qianshan Mansion." "Yes." The guard accepted the order and left. In the study, Marquis Qianshan's anger still hadn't subsided. The price of condensing a diviner decree was not small. Now, he had suffered a double loss. Originally, he planned to train Fu Moyan and the others if they were useful. At that time, it would be a good choice to gather the mutant forces in Qianshan Mansion. But now, Marquis Qianshan didn't have this idea at all. There were many mutants in Qianshan Mansion. Since these were trash, he would just choose a few more and train them. As for Fu Moyan and the others, they wasted his diviner decree and should be punished. Marquis Qianshan is so evil. He actually sent people to kill us. It seems that we can't stay in Qianshan Mansion any longer. We must leave as soon as possible. In the dense forest, Fu Moyan and the others fled in panic. Ever since they were killed by the people of Yuan sect, they revived in Qianshan Mansion. However, not long after they revived, the 7 of them received the notification that they had failed the mission. Then, they saw the post on the forum where Yuan sect's players had put a bounty on them. When they saw the post, Fu Moyan's face turned green. Although Yuan sect only existed in the Liang Mountain Spirit region, and they were far away in Qianshan Mansion, it was almost impossible for them to meet. However, one had to know. Players would do anything for the mission reward. There might be people who would do it for the reward. They would form a team to kill them. Therefore, during this period of time, Fu Moyan and the others were very careful. They were afraid that they would expose their tracks. In the end, they didn't get hunted down by Yuan sect. Instead, they got hunted down by Marquis Qianshan, as a force that controlled half of Qianshan Mansion. It was too easy to find a few players. After dying 3 times in a row, they finally understood that they couldn't stay in Qianshan Mansion any longer. They had to leave this place. Otherwise, if they continued to die like this, they would be killed. Marquis Qianshan's force can only control half of Qianshan Mansion. As long as we leave their sphere of influence, we will be safe for the time being. As Fu Moyan spoke, he glanced at his level that was about to drop to the basic realm. His heart twitched again. Loss. Huge loss. The failure of this mission and the continuous deaths made his half a year of hard work go down the drain. His heart ached. He once again felt a strong anger towards Qin Shujian. If he hadn't blocked Lord of 6 Desires, this mission would have been completed. At that time, he would have been promoted by Marquis Qianshan. Although he wouldn't be at the peak of his life, he wouldn't be far from it. He wouldn't be like now, like a stray dog being chased by others. Fu Moyan suddenly regretted it. Why didn't he use the heavenly decree to kill Qin Shujian back then? As long as he could kill the Liang Mountain Stockade Master, regardless of whether he could respawn or not, at least he would have vented his anger. He wouldn't feel so uncomfortable now. We should change our resurrection point. While escaping, LV Xianyan suggested. Suddenly, everyone stopped for a moment, then bound themselves to a nearby resurrection point, and quickly left the place. As they fled, they had changed their resurrection point no less than a few times. After all, the original resurrection point, it had been controlled by Marquis Qianshan's men. If they didn't change it, once they were killed and resurrected, they would be blocked by Marquis Qianshan's men. Then, they wouldn't be able to play this game anymore. Less than 2 minutes after Fu Moyan and the others left, Marquis Qianshan's men had already chased after them. Chapter 290. The day before yesterday, you still called me senior brother. Today, you stabbed me with a knife. This matter is not over. Song Qing's face was filled with anger. The long sword in his hand emitted a powerful sword aura, as if it was winter. The frosty sword light made people feel cold all over. On the opposite side of him, it was the same Yuan sect elite player. The difference was, that player held a long blade in his hand. Every attack was powerful and heavy, causing a strong gust of wind. Bang! Bang! The two of them continued to fight, and the wind spread in all directions. Not far away from the two of them, it was a dark black flower that looked like a ghost face. Rank 7 elixir, Ghost King Orchid. It was a material that could be used to refine pills of rank 7 and above. The most important thing was, it could be exchanged for 10,000 contribution points. For players, if they could obtain this Ghost King Orchid, they could earn another 5,000 contribution points after deducting the cost of their trip to the new area. Since I called you senior brother, didn't I see you giving this Ghost King Orchid to me? Yizhingan did not care. The long blade in his hand did not stop at all, constantly blocking Song Qing's attacks, and occasionally counterattacking. In front of 10,000 contribution points. In the eyes of players, any senior brother was fake. Subsequently, Yi Jing'an sneered again. As the saying goes, treasures belong to the strong. The Ghost King Orchid is here, so you should rely on yourself to get it. What a good saying. Do you really think you are my opponent? Song Qing laughed in anger. As his true essence surged, the long sword in his hand shot out a sword light, instantly transforming into a dozen sword shadows, enveloping Yi Jing'an. At the border of Liang Mountain Spirit Domain. At this time, the Chaos Blood Army had already retreated, and the people of Yuan sect were guarding here. When Qin Shujian and the other two arrived, the leader of the Yuan sect deacon stepped forward and cupped his fists. Greetings, sect master! And has anyone barged into the new area in the past 2 days? There are cultivators wandering around, but no one barged in. Good. Qin Shujian nodded. No one barged in. In the end, it was still because of the Yuan sect's deterrence. Not to mention the Liang Mountain Spirit Domain, even in the entire Beiyun Mansion, there were not many forces that dared to go against Yuan sect. This was especially the case when Yuan Zong's ruthless methods from earlier were also known by the other factions. If he didn't want the sect to be destroyed and people to perish, then he wouldn't have come to provoke Yuan Zong. After briefly inquiring about the situation, Qin Shujian, Xiao Hong and the rest waited at the border. It was now the 3rd day. According to the agreement, everyone who entered the new area should come out very soon. Then someone walked out from the newly born region. With the 3 of them's eyesight, even though they were far away, they were able to tell that it was a disciple from the Yuan school. Your esteemed sect's disciple came out so quickly, he must have gained a lot, Xiao Hong said when he saw this. I hope so. Qin Shuyan smiled faintly. Following the appearance of the first person, a second, a third, and even more people came out one after another. This was because too many people had entered Yuan sect. Therefore, the people who came out were inside. Most of them were from Yuan sect. However, there were also a few people from the Beiyun Marquis Mansion. Half a day passed. Most of the people from both sides had already come out. In the end, Qin Shujian and Xiao Hong looked at each other and said, Is it me or Steward Xiao? This is the Liang Mountain spiritual region. Let Sect Master Qin come. All right. Qin Shujian nodded. He took a step forward. Immediately, the spiritual god manifestation, a 200 feet tall divine spirit, appeared in the sky. It stood in the void, and a powerful aura spread out in all directions. In fact, it was so mighty that it made people's minds tremble. A 20-foot spiritual god. It seems that Sect Master Qin is really at the peak of the prominent divine stage. Xiao Hong couldn't help but sigh when he saw the huge spiritual god. On the other side, Su Mingyang was also shocked. How long had it been? He was already at the peak of the prominent divine stage. Next, he would probably enter the divine martial stage. Based on his speed of advancement, he would probably become a true heavenly advanced cultivator in less than 2 years. Of course, the premise for all of this was that there was no bottleneck. As for the others, there was no need to talk about it. A spiritual deity that was only 20 feet tall already possessed enough impact power. The huge spiritual god stood in the air and an invisible wave of divine will spread out. In an instant, it covered the entire new region. At the same time, a message appeared in the minds of everyone in the new region. I am Qin Shujian of the Yuan sect. Everyone, retreat within 6 hours. Those who don't retreat within the time limit will be killed without mercy. Soon, the divine will dissipated. The spiritual god returned to his body. As for the people in the new region, they were all stunned and immediately rushed toward the border of the Liang Mountain spiritual region. Killing without mercy again. His heart is really ruthless. Some Yuan sect players couldn't help but complain. Ever since they entered the Yuan sect, almost all of them who disobeyed orders were killed without mercy. However, the other party was ruthless and did as he said. No one dared to use their status as a sect disciple to test whether or not the sect leader's words would come true on themselves. The other party was ruthless in killing his enemies. He was ruthless in killing himself. As for the people of the Bayun Marquis mansion, they didn't dare to stay in the new region for long. Although they had the backing of the Bayun Marquis mansion, Qin Shujian might not kill them. However, it was better to be safe than sorry. This was an expert who could seriously injure a Sky Realm demon. If he really wanted to kill them in the sky, the Bayun Marquis wouldn't stand up for them. Moreover, they weren't important enough for the Bayun Marquis to stand up for them. The Liang Mountain Spiritual Region. After the spiritual god appeared and sent a message through divine will, Qin Shujian stood in place and waited. With the vastness of the new region and the strength of the people who entered, 6 hours was enough to walk from the beginning to the end. There was still a lot of time left. This kind of divine will transmission. Only a powerful spiritual god could do it. Qin Shujian could only do this after breaking through to the 27th stage of the Gui Yuan ancestral canon and officially entering the prominent divine stage. With the help of the original powerful spiritual god, he had the strength comparable to the peak of the prominent divine stage. Soon, more people came one after another. 6 hours later, almost all the people from both sides had come out. Xiaohong turned around and took a look. There were 37 people who entered the Liang Mountain spiritual region. Now, 32 of them had come out. He already understood why the remaining 5 people hadn't come out. This kind of situation. He had already expected it. After all, it was normal to fight for treasures. Even if they died there, they could only blame themselves for not being as strong as others. As for whether there would be people hiding and not coming out, Xiaohong didn't need to consider this possibility at all. After all, the Sky Origin sect had already sent people to guard here. In the future, they would definitely explore the new region. If they hid there, they would be found one day. At that time, it would be a dead end. As for Qin Shujian, he swept a glance at the people behind him and didn't pay much attention to them. At this moment, Xiaohong stepped forward and cupped his hands. Sect Master Qin, this matter has been settled. This old man will take his leave first. Take care. Goodbye. Su Mingyang also cupped his hands from afar. Then, the two of them left with the people of the Bayun Marquis mansion. Then, Qin Shujian said to the deacon who was guarding the border, "From now on, anyone who comes out of the new region, check their identity token and record it down. Then, kill them on the spot. As for the others, kill them all. Don't show any mercy." Simple words. But the killing intent made people feel a chill in their hearts. The deacon's body trembled and he hurriedly replied, "Sect Master, don't worry. I will do as you say." Good. Qin Shujian took a deep look at the other party and left with his men. As for those who had just come out of the new region, cold sweat appeared on their foreheads when they heard this. Their hearts trembled. As for the others' reactions, Qin Shujian's divine will could naturally sense it. To this, he could only sneer in his heart. If he wanted to develop the sect and use it as a tool to harvest the source of life, he had to do both at the same time. Or else, if others had the idea to challenge the sect's prestige, it wouldn't be a matter that could be solved by killing 1 or 2 people. After returning to the Yuan sect, Qin Shujian handed the matter over to a group of elders before he left swiftly. According to the sect's previous rules, any disciple who has obtained a natural spiritual item must hand it over. The sect will give 20,000 contribution points as compensation. Anyone who dares to hide it will be severely punished. John Tinia's face was cold as he looked at the disciples in front of him and shouted in a deep voice. After becoming the enforcement elder, his power and influence grew day by day. Especially now that there were so many disciples in the Yuan sect, there were also many who violated the sect's rules. As the enforcement elder, John Tinia's ruthless methods were well known in the Yuan sect. After he finished speaking, immediately, someone stepped forward and took out a piece of green bamboo. He said, "This is the natural spiritual item that I have collected. Please check it, enforcement elder." He took the green bamboo. Just by touching it, Zhang Tinya could feel the weak spirituality. He was satisfied and looked at the person and asked, "Not bad, what is your name?" "My name is Lin Jie." "Stand aside and wait." "Yes." Hearing this, Lin Jie instantly stepped forward and stood aside. After the first person. Soon, the second and third person stepped forward. Although natural spiritual items were rare, the new area had just been born. No matter how rare natural spiritual items were, there were still some. In addition, more than 2,000 people from the Yuan sect had entered this time. Basically, as long as it was a natural spiritual item, 99% of them couldn't escape the fate of being plundered. Soon, 7 people stepped forward and handed over the natural spiritual items they had obtained. As for the others, there was no movement. Seeing this, Zhang Tinya didn't say anything else. He took the 7 natural spiritual items and the disciple who had submitted the spiritual items directly to the mission hall. This trip to the new area. Except for the natural spiritual items that were forced to be handed over in exchange for contribution points. The other gains were all personal. How to deal with it? The Yuan sect wouldn't interfere anymore. Chapter 291. In the courtyard. Under the osmanthus tree. 7 connate spiritual objects were placed on the stone table. They were different from the sect guarding spiritual artifacts and Tao artifacts. The newly born connate spiritual objects were more like embryos. Tao artifacts carry the power of heaven and earth through the Tao seal. The more powerful the Tao artifact, the more Tao seals it has, and the more power it can carry. The reason why Tao artifacts can't be forged is that ordinary materials can't bear the power of the Tao seal, or the power of heaven and earth. Looking at the connate spiritual objects in front of him, Qin Shijian's mind flashed through everything about forging grandmasters. Most people thought that high-grade spiritual artifacts were the limit of what forging grandmasters could forge. High-grade forging grandmasters could forge low-grade spiritual artifacts. Forging grandmasters could forge middle-grade spiritual artifacts. As for high-grade spiritual artifacts, only forging grandmasters could successfully forge them. But there was one thing to know. Even if it was a high-grade spiritual artifact, it would at most pose a threat to God martial arts realm cultivators. It was useless for diviner realm cultivators. One had to know that formation grandmasters could set up formations comparable to great cultivators. As the source of formation Tao, forging grandmasters could not only forge high-grade spiritual artifacts. If that was the case, forging Tao could no longer be compared to formation Tao. To forge Tao artifacts, there must be an embryo. And it was not an ordinary embryo. The embryo of Tao artifacts needed to be connate spiritual objects, and it had to be a newly born connate embryo that had not been contaminated by any turbid air. One had to know. There was turbid air in heaven and earth. A newly born connate spiritual object would also be protected by the connate spirit chi that had not dissipated, which could prevent it from being eroded by the turbid air. But over time, after the connate spirit chi was exhausted, the connate spiritual object would no longer be considered a connate embryo, although it was still connate. According to Qin Shijian's own observation, this connate spirit chi could last for at most 15 days. In this way, it could be imagined how difficult it was to get the connate embryo to forge a Tao artifact. Therefore, there were memories of forging grandmasters in the treasure book of forging, which was why there was a saying that Tao artifacts could not be forged and that high-grade spiritual artifacts were the limit of forging grandmasters. It was not that it could not be forged. It was because the materials to forge it were too rare. Basically, one might not be able to wait for decades. So to a certain extent, there was no possibility of forging Tao artifacts. This kind of thing could only be known to grandmaster blacksmiths. As for those below the level of guru, he didn't even have the right to come into contact with it. This time, the newly born area is close to the boundary of Mount Liang. Now that these innate spiritual objects have been born, their innate spiritual energy still exists. They have not been polluted by the turbid air of the world. We can take advantage of this opportunity to forge Dao tools, Qin Shujian thought to himself. No sect would dislike having too many Dao artifacts. But before casting, he first picked up a connate spiritual item. After a few seconds, there was no reaction. He put down the connate fei and picked up the second one. This time, a system notification appeared in his mind. You possess a grade 3 Dao artifact, the Golden Lotus. It is extremely compatible with the innate spirit item, the White Lotus. Would you like to fuse it? At this moment, Qin Shujian was holding a white lotus-shaped connate spiritual item in his hand. The moment the system notification appeared, a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. As expected, other than being able to forge a Dao artifact, a matching innate embryo can also fuse with an existing one. In such a situation, this was not the first time Qin Shujian had encountered this. Back then, Qian Shanxue was able to become a Dao artifact because it swallowed a connate spiritual item called the Calamity Punishment Spear. Now, the third grade Golden Lotus also triggered this notification. Regarding this, Qin Shujian naturally had no reason not to fuse with it. After taking out the third grade Golden Lotus, he silently said fuse in his heart. Soon, he watched as the third grade Golden Lotus and the White Lotus floated into the air. Finally, they slowly merged together before his eyes. At the same time, in the void above Mount Liang, a huge illusory Golden Lotus bloomed. The faint golden light was like a sacred existence, attracting the attention of many. The illusory Golden Lotus appeared very quickly. It also disappeared very quickly. After a short while, this strange phenomenon completely disappeared. In the courtyard, the third grade Golden Lotus was spinning. The difference was, compared to before, a fourth lotus leaf had already grown out on the lotus platform in addition to the 3 lotus leaves. It could be said that, at this moment, the third grade Golden Lotus had transformed into a fourth grade Golden Lotus. However, it was a pity. Even though the fourth lotus leaf had grown, this Dao artifact did not nurture the third Dao seal. It was still in the ranks of 2 sealed Dao artifacts. After obtaining the fourth grade Golden Lotus, Qin Shujian's expression was one of satisfaction. Although it did not become a 3 sealed Dao artifact. With the growth of the fourth lotus leaf, the power of this Dao artifact was much stronger than before. If it was only an ordinary 2 sealed Dao artifact before, then now, this fourth grade Golden Lotus was already considered to be the top among 2 sealed Dao artifacts. Incarnate embryo in exchange for a Dao artifact's strength increase. This was naturally a good deal. Unfortunately, after the Yuan sect became a 5th grade force, 1 more Dao artifact or 1 less Dao artifact would not cause any change in luck. The 4th grade to the 5th grade was a threshold. The 5th grade to the 6th grade was an even bigger threshold. If there were still people who had reached the 5th grade, then according to Qin Shujian's understanding, no one other than the Imperial Court had reached the 6th grade and above. From this, it could be seen. It was not easy to become a 6th grade force. Therefore, right now, Qin Shujian was too lazy to care about the gain or loss of luck. Unless it was tens of thousands of luck points. Or else, there was almost no possibility of becoming a 6th grade force. After putting away the 4th grade Golden Lotus, he looked at the 5 connate spiritual objects that he had not touched yet. The old method. He grabbed them one by one. However, it was a pity. By the time he put down the last connate spiritual object, the system did not prompt him. This also meant that these connate spiritual objects were not compatible with the Dao artifacts he had. Regarding this, Qin Shujian stopped experimenting. Inside the inherited martial hall, Qin Shujian summoned Jingfang and the other elders. When everyone was present, he immediately said, I need to go into seclusion at the peak of Liang Mountain for a period of time. During this period of time, no matter what happens, do not panic. In addition, without my order, no one is allowed to set foot on the peak of Liang Mountain. This includes all the elders. During this period of time, if anything happens, the Great Elder will be in charge. The other elders will assist from the side. In addition, I will leave the 1,000 mountain blood in the inherited martial hall. If there is an unsolvable problem, the Tao artifact will be enough to kill a great cultivator of the divine martial realm. This old man obeys. Xingfang was the first to reply. As for the other elders, they did not raise any objections. However, Qin Shijian's words caused other thoughts to arise in their hearts. Seclusion to cultivate? Could it be that he was preparing to step into the divine martial realm? This thought had just appeared, but it could not be suppressed. Qin Shijian did not know what the other elders were thinking, nor did he want to know. After explaining the matter, he brought the connate spiritual objects to the peak of Liang Mountain. It was different from refining spiritual objects. With the means of a Grand Master blacksmith, as long as the materials were suitable, even if it relied on the void, it could still be successfully refined. To refine a Tao artifact, it must be done at the right time, the right place, and the right people. All three were indispensable. The Liang Mountain spiritual domain was centered around Liang Mountain. Liang Mountain was the main area of Liang Mountain. The place with the most abundant spiritual energy was the peak of Liang Mountain, which was closest to the vault of heaven. Therefore, the peak of Liang Mountain was the best place to refine a Tao artifact. In the next few days, above Liang Mountain, thunderclouds began to gather in the sky. As time passed, the thunderclouds began to expand, gradually covering the entire Liang Mountain. Above the huge thunderclouds, from time to time, purple lightning would scatter. A terrifying power was emitted from the sky, causing everyone to feel oppressed. Lightning was the power of the heavens. As long as it was a creature born in the world, it would instinctively feel fear towards lightning. Unless it was strong enough to change the heavens and the earth. Or else, under the cover of the thunderclouds, it would be very difficult to remain calm. A natural phenomenon. Could it be that some powerful spiritual object is about to be born? It doesn't seem like it. I've never seen any spiritual object being born that would cause such a huge commotion. Furthermore, I didn't sense any spiritual light soaring into the sky. It shouldn't be the birth of a spiritual object. With the instructions of many elders in the Yuan sect, there was no disturbance. However, such a phenomenon in Liang Mountain City attracted the attention of many experts. After all, the thunderclouds that covered the entire Liang Mountain were too big. All of a sudden, someone opened his mouth and said, "This thundercloud seems to be caused when a spiritual artifact is born." Immediately, many people cast their gazes over with strange expressions. Qinglang couldn't help but say, "When have you ever seen such a huge thundercloud when a spiritual artifact is born? Even if it's a high-grade spiritual artifact, the thundercloud wouldn't be as big as 1/10 of this." Although blacksmiths were rare, it wasn't that they didn't exist. As for the phenomenon of a high-grade spiritual artifact being born, it would be recorded in the ancient books. As veteran blacksmiths, they knew a little about these things. Hearing this, that person immediately shut his mouth. What he said just now was just a slip of the tongue. After saying it, he realized that he was wrong. Therefore, he didn't reply to the other person's rebuttal. However, after a long period of silence, a bewildered voice sounded. "If it's not a high-grade spiritual artifact, do you think it's possible that it's caused by the forging of a Tao artifact?" After saying that, the scene suddenly became silent. Everyone's expression kept changing. For a moment, no one refuted. After a long while, someone laughed and said, "It's rumored that a Tao artifact can't be forged. It's impossible for anyone to forge a Tao artifact. It's naturally impossible for others. However, don't forget that there's still a master in Liang Mountain." After saying that, the scene became strangely quiet again. That's right. A Tao artifact can't be forged. However, if a master were to forge one, would it really be impossible? Chapter 292. Thunderclouds covered the sky for 7 days. The entire Liang Mountain region was in an oppressive state. The competition that was supposed to take place had to be postponed because of this phenomenon. After the rumor that Qin Shujian could forge Dao artifacts spread out, almost all the blacksmiths went to Liang Mountain City. Dao artifacts could not be forged. This was a rumor that had been circulating among the blacksmiths for a long time. Now, a Dao artifact had appeared. It was worth it for other blacksmiths to come and observe. Unfortunately, they did not have the chance to go to the Shangyuan sect to see it in person. Anyone who wanted to visit Qin Shujian was stopped and persuaded to go back. Therefore, although these people were itching, they could only pay attention to the changes in the thunderclouds. Boom! Suddenly, lightning fell from the sky. The purple lightning seemed to have dispelled the darkness brought by the thunderclouds and bombarded the peak of Liang Mountain. Terrifying heavenly might. Vast and mighty. Everyone could feel the destructive aura in the lightning tribulation. This definitely surpassed the limit of the spirit martial realm, and reached an even more terrifying level. In other words, if one did not have the means to break the shackles of the spirit realm or had a Dao artifact, the top experts of the spirit realm would basically die in front of this lightning tribulation. When the lightning tribulation fell, it lasted for 3 whole days. During these 3 days, every once in a while, a lightning tribulation would fall. Some cultivators counted silently. In 3 days there were 720 lightning tribulations. The power of each lightning tribulation was slightly stronger than the previous one. When it came to the last few lightning tribulations, it even surpassed the limit of the divine martial realm and faintly touched the level of the celestial being. Facing such a lightning tribulation, the cultivators in Liang Mountain City did not even dare to breathe loudly, afraid that they would attract the lightning tribulation. Such an attack. Even a divine martial realm cultivator would only die when facing it. After the lightning tribulation dispersed, 7 colored rays of light filled the sky. All kinds of strange phenomena appeared, stirring up the hearts of those people. They wanted to go to Liang Mountain to see the situation, but there was no way. On the peak of Liang Mountain, a green robe floated in the air. 2 Taoist seals were engraved on it, indicating that it was a Tao item. 666 Sect Master, you're truly an immortal. You've forged a Taoist artifact with your own strength. This is truly unprecedented. Now, in the cultivation world, no one can compare to you in terms of forging. The universal bow flattered at the right time. The old voice was filled with shock and envy. Tao artifact. This was a Tao artifact. Back then, after thousands of years, it was still a middle-grade spiritual tool. After meeting Qin Shujian, it was given the opportunity to be promoted to a Tao tool. If someone had used the same method on it in the past, there was no need for it to waste 1,000 years without being able to see the threshold of a Tao artifact. On the other side, Qin Shujian smiled as well. With a wave of his hand, the green robe landed in his hand. Since you're a Tao artifact, let's call you the Dustless Immortal Robe. As soon as it finished speaking, a faint spirituality was emitted from it, as if it was very satisfied with this name. To him, Qin Shujian laughed a few more times. His laughter was full of carefreeness. A Tao artifact could not be forged. Now a Tao artifact was born from his hands. Just this. It was enough to make him proud. Although Qin Shujian did not seem like the kind of person who dedicated his life to forging, the longer he was in contact with forging, the more he recognized this Tao in his heart. Now, he had forged a Tao artifact. In a sense, he had already broken a barrier. Those who can forge high-grade spiritual tools can only be regarded as fake grandmasters. Those who can forge Tao artifacts can be called grandmasters. The dustless immortal robe in his hand was not only a Tao artifact, but also a 2-sealed Tao artifact. As a blacksmith, Qin Shujian had a telepathic connection with the dustless immortal robe. This was not a blood recognition, but a natural connection. With the dustless immortal robe in his hand, he did not put it on immediately. Instead, he put it in his storage ring. The reason why he refined the dustless immortal robe. It was mainly because of the previous heavenly decree, which made Qin Shujian wary. Now, with the dustless immortal robe in his hand, his heart was filled with a sense of security. First, he had the 4th grade golden lotus to protect him. Then, he had the dustless immortal robe. Both of them were 2 sealed Tao artifacts. Even a heavenly strike could not directly break through the defense of 2 Tao artifacts. In this way, he would have enough time to deal with it. However, in order to forge the dustless immortal robe, Qin Shujian had also used 3 connate spiritual objects. As for the remaining 3 connate spiritual objects, now that the connate spiritual energy had disappeared and the turbid energy had entered his body, he had lost the qualification to become a connate embryo. In this way, these connate spiritual objects were not of much use to him. As for thousands of years later, whether these connate spiritual objects could grow into Tao artifacts or not, Qin Shujian decided not to think about it. The Ming King Hellfire burned the void. It directly swallowed the 3 connate spiritual objects. The Hellfire burned. In the end, it turned into 3 fire lotuses. When the cosmic bow saw this scene, the bow trembled slightly. With its knowledge, it could not recognize the origin of the Ming King Hellfire, but it felt a fatal threat from it. This kind of flame, even a Tao artifact could not resist it. The cosmic bow could clearly sense that the spirituality of the 3 connate spiritual objects that were burned by the Hellfire had completely dissipated. Even the connate foundation was not left. In simple terms, now, the 3 connate spiritual objects had lost the qualification of spiritual objects. It could only be said that they were relatively high-level and hard materials. In addition to that, there was nothing else. Qin Shujian did not care about the cosmic bow's thoughts. He reached out and swallowed the 3 fire lotuses. The originally powerful spirit god increased a little again. Such an increase, compared to Qin Shujian's spirit god that was now 200 feet tall, the effect was actually not much. This made him miss the time when he swallowed the evil spirit. That kind of power almost made the spirit god grow slowly. How could it be like now? It's a pity that the current Ming King Hellfire is still too weak. It can't really burn the evil spirit of the celestial realm. Otherwise, I would like to see how much power a real celestial realm evil spirit can have. Qin Shujian thought of the severely injured Lord of 6 Desires. It was a pity. His Ming King Hellfire could not pose much of a threat to the other party before his fiendish chi was exhausted. In the end, he ended up being killed by others. Immediately, Qin Shujian thought again. The evil spirits in the ordinary realm of the Beiyun Prefecture have been killed. Given my current strength, it should not be a problem to kill the evil spirits sealed in the true dominion, or the spirit realm. In other words, besides the Beiyun Prefecture, there should be many places where evil spirits are sealed in the other 12 prefectures. In his opinion, the evil spirits were equivalent to walking luck points, a large source of life, and energy that could increase one's strength. It could be said that the evil spirits were full of treasures. However, if he wanted to attack the evil spirits in the Beiyun Prefecture, the true dominion or the spirit realm, he had to communicate with the imperial court. After all, this kind of thing could lead to endless troubles in the future. If the Sky Origin sect attacked without permission, the imperial court might have other ideas. However, I can attack the ordinary realms of the other prefectures. Basically, I can kill the evil spirits with the Tao artifact. If I set up an array formation, killing the evil spirits would be a piece of cake. In this way, the Sky Origin sect's manpower can be divided and they can search for more evil spirits to kill. However, the place with the most evil spirits should be the Demon Abyss, where they were born. If I have the chance to kill my way into the Demon Abyss in the future, it will be a real harvest. Gradually, Qin Shujian's thoughts drifted a little. However, very soon, he came back to his senses. Killing his way into the Demon Abyss was no different from a fool's dream. Given his current strength as an array Grandmaster, he could only deal with one evil spirit at most. If there were more, The array formation would definitely not be able to withstand it. Qin Shujian had not entered the demon abyss before. However, he knew. The demon abyss was full of evil spirits of the heaven realm. If an array grandmaster entered, he would probably be killed before he had the chance to attack. Therefore, this thought had just arisen. He threw it to the back of his mind. Instead of thinking about dealing with the evil spirits in the demon abyss, it was already a great harvest for him to be able to clean up the evil spirits in the 13 prefectures of Great Shao. In your opinion, what kind of thing can bear the weight of a grandmaster array formation? After collecting his thoughts, Qin Shujian looked at the bow of heaven and earth at the side. As he became stronger and stronger, the effect of this Tao artifact was also gradually decreasing. However, there was a difference. Compared to the bow of heaven and earth's strength, Qin Shujian valued its profound knowledge more. Hearing this, the bow of heaven and earth pondered for a while, then said, "To a certain extent, a Grand Master array formation is equivalent to a heaven realm cultivator. A heaven realm cultivator can condense a heaven realm law, which contains a heaven realm attack. This is similar to bearing a Grand Master array formation. So, do you know what can bear it?" Qin Shujian directly interrupted the other party's narration and said speechlessly, "So much nonsense. Why don't you start from Pengu's creation of heaven and earth?" "Ah, what creation of heaven and earth?" Hearing this, the bow of heaven and earth was obviously stunned. It did not know if Qin Shujian spoke too quickly just now. It only heard 2 parts, but it did not hear the middle part clearly. However, seeing that Qin Shujian was a little impatient, the bow of heaven and earth did not dare to delay any longer and quickly said, "To bear the weight of a Grand Master array formation, it must be a high-grade spiritual object, and the most representative of it is a spirit stone. Spirit stones are born from nature and gather the essence of heaven and earth, so they can bear the power of a heaven realm cultivator. Generally, where spirit stones are born, there will be jade stones of a lower grade. Although they can't be compared to spirit stones, they can also bear the power of a heaven realm cultivator. The celestial decree is also usually made of these jades." At this point, the bow of heaven and earth paused and continued. Apart from these 2 spiritual objects, the rest are much weaker in bearing the power of a heaven realm cultivator. Even if they are forcefully added, the power will be greatly reduced. Chapter 293. The dustless fairy robe was successfully refined. The next day, Qin Shujian wore a green robe and sat in the main seat of the Qinghu Hall. Below him were the various elders. It was worth mentioning that, because there was only one elder in each branch, it was inevitable that it was not comprehensive enough. So, on the basis of a branch master elder, 2 more branch elders were promoted to assist him. Of course, except for the demon vein. Because the demon vein was full of beasts, even if they had merged into Yuan's sect and their strength had increased when the sect was promoted, they were still far from reaching the standard of transformation, not to mention other things. Beasts could transform. They had to at least reach the spirit martial realm. In addition, they also needed enough wisdom to transform successfully. Or else, just like in the endless mountain range, there were many beasts in the spirit martial realm, but they were not intelligent enough, so there were no beasts that could transform. If they wanted to transform in advance, they had to swallow the transformation fruit like Neodali. But the transformation fruit was rumored to be a spiritual fruit that surpassed the 9th level. Not to mention its value, it was extremely rare. Qin Shujian did not know either. How did Neodali get the transformation fruit? Because of some reasons, many things have been postponed. Now I have decided that the main sect and the 5 branches will open their gates tomorrow. Anyone who is suitable can join our sect. Qin Shujian sat in the main seat and said loudly. At the same time, from tomorrow onwards, Cold Mountain City will officially host a competition for the Tao of Forging and the Tao of Array Formations. All participants must be at least a mid-level blacksmith or a mid-level array master. In addition, the sect will officially open the formation division. Any disciple who majored in alchemy, casting, and formation will get 100 contribution points every month when they reach the lower grade, 500 contribution points for the middle grade, and 2,000 contribution points for the upper grade. As for those who reach the Master Realm, they will get 10,000 contribution points every month. In addition, except for the Master Realm, the other three must complete certain tasks every month. Otherwise, the contribution points awarded will be halved. This time, he was ready to perfect Yuan's sect again. Now, most of the people in Yuan's sect focused on cultivation. As for the number of disciples in the alchemy and casting halls, compared to the total number of people in the sect, the difference was exaggerated. If a sect wanted to develop quickly, in addition to the necessary strength, other auxiliary personnel were also indispensable. If the Tao of alchemy, forging, and array formations were used properly, it was possible for a disciple to display 120% of their strength, or even higher. Qin Shujian believed him. If this reward system was announced, it should attract a lot of people. However, he wasn't worried that he wouldn't be able to focus on improving his own realm. Compared to the Tao of pill refinement and other auxiliary Taos, there was never a lack of manpower on the path of cultivation. Hearing this, the other elders were still fine, but Xin Yuqing and Xin Yuhua were a little excited. After a period of silent cultivation, Xin Yuqing had broken through from an intermediate-grade blacksmith to a high-grade blacksmith. In other words, just like Xin Yuhua, as long as he completed a certain number of missions every month, he would be able to obtain an additional 2,000 contribution points. Even if he didn't do anything, at the very least, he would have a minimum of 1,000 contribution points. Such a reward system could be said to be extremely beneficial to the alchemy and blacksmithing halls. After saying that, Qin Shujian glanced at everyone's expressions before his gaze finally landed on Xin Yuqing. He said, "Elder Xin, you will be the judge for the blacksmith competition this time." According to his observation, this time, there were no master-level figures coming. The strongest person was only a high-grade blacksmith. With Xin Yuqing's current realm, it was more than enough to serve as a referee. Hearing this, Xin Yuqing immediately stood up, cupped his hands and said, "Yes, sect master." Then Qin Shujian said a few more words. With that, the meeting was officially over. The Yuan sect mountain gate was about to be held. Cold Mountain City was once again full of people. Because many people came late, they didn't have a place to stay and could only choose to sleep in the wilderness outside the city. Fortunately, those who could come were among them. More or less, they had some strength. In addition, there were a lot of people sleeping in the wilderness, so there were no accidents. The next day, the Yuan sect officially opened its mountain gate and recruited disciples from all over the world. This matter, Qin Shujian handed it over to Jingfang, the great elder, to handle. Now, these things didn't need him, the sect master, to do it personally. As for the other side, outside Cold Mountain City, 2 spacious platforms had been built, and a large number of cultivators had gathered below. On one side of the platform, it was a seat exclusive to the referee, and a group of Yuan sect cultivators were sitting there. Xin Yuqing stood up and looked at the crowd, saying loudly, "I am Yuan sect's blacksmith hall elder, Xin Yuqing, and also the referee of this competition. This blacksmith competition requires participants to be at least middle-grade blacksmiths. In addition, it is divided into 2 rounds, the preliminary round and the final round. If you want to participate, please come up directly. As for those who are not middle-grade blacksmiths and want to make up the numbers, kill them without mercy." After saying that, some of the cultivators looked regretful, but they didn't say anything. As for the other cultivators, they had already leaped onto the platform. These people, the lowest was a middle-grade blacksmith. After all, with the Yuan sect's power in front of them, no one dared to provoke them and see if they would kill them. On the other side of the platform, the law-enforcing elder, Zhang Tiniu, was in charge. It was different from the blacksmith competition. Although the competition was also divided into the preliminary round and the final round, there were no requirements for the level of the cultivator's array. "I am Yuan sect's law-enforcing elder. Anyone who wants to participate in the array competition can come up to the platform directly. After saying that, hundreds of people instantly entered the platform that was nearly 10 feet wide. Although the people standing below also had an eager look in their eyes, in the end, they knew their own limits and did not go up to make a fool of themselves. After 15 minutes, John Tenius saw that no one came up to the platform, and immediately clapped his hands. Then, a few deacons of the Yuan sect came up with trays. On the trays, jade stones were placed on the trays. John Tenius said, "Each jade stone is engraved with a miniature tactical formation, but the tactical formation on each jade stone is different. It may be an auxiliary tactical formation, a defensive tactical formation, or even a trapping or killing tactical formation. What you need to do is to break the array on the jade stone within 2 hours. According to the speed of breaking the array, the first 30 people to break the array will enter the final round, and the rest will be eliminated." While he was talking, the array master on the platform had a serious look on his face as he listened to what John Tenius said. The way to test the array master. The most direct way was to set up and break the array. Then, John Tenius said again, "But you need to be aware that because the array is different, there will be risks. If you encounter a killing array, you may even die. So, if you don't want to participate in the competition, it's not too late to leave the platform now." After saying that, no one left. Seeing this, John Tenius didn't say anything else. He used his true essence to grab all the jade stones on the trays, and then flew toward the crowd on the platform. Suddenly, everyone took action and snatched the jade stones flying in the air. Soon, all the jade stones were snatched away. Those who don't have any jade stones have been eliminated. Please leave the platform. Hearing this, some people who were empty-handed turned pale. They looked at the people on both sides and had to leave. In an instant, 20 to 30 people left. The competition hadn't really started yet, but these 20 to 30 people had already been eliminated. Soon, someone placed a huge hourglass on the table. John Tenius said, "When the hourglass is empty, it'll be 2 hours. Now, the competition officially begins." After saying that, the hourglass turned upside down. The fine sand slid down from the top bit by bit. At the same time, most of the people were immersed in the jade stones in their hands, and then they were breaking the array on the jade stones. Boom! There was a silent boom. Zwajin only felt that his surroundings had changed. When he reacted, he had already appeared in a place of nothingness. The surroundings should be dark, but it was as bright as day. This is an array! As for the changes in his body, he immediately understood. There was nothing around him. Zwajin frowned. He spread out his divine thought little by little, trying to find some clues. After all, there was nothing here. He didn't even know what kind of array it was. To break the array, at the very least, he needed to take the right medicine. As his divine thought spread out, Zwajin stood still on the spot. Since they were in the middle of a formation, every step they took could bring unknown dangers and changes. If they were not careful, they could meet with a disaster. Soon. Not long after his divine thought spread out, he found that he had encountered an invisible obstacle. No matter how he spread it forward, there was no change at all. It's reached the limit! Zwajin already understood that this should be the limit of this array. However, after carefully investigating the distance of the array, he was shocked once again. The divine thought spread out to at least 100 feet. Such an array was really a miniature one. It was sealed in an ordinary jade stone, but it could scare people's minds. Such a method was simply shocking. It seems that this array should be made by that Grand Master. Zwajin was both nervous and excited at the thought of this. An array set up by a sect master himself. Even if this array may have only used 1%, or even 1,000th of the means, it was still made by a Grand Master, and it had a different meaning. He couldn't watch the Grand Master teach. But to be able to understand the array in the hands of a Grand Master was also a good fortune. However, Zwajin wasn't sure how much time had passed since he came in. The entire array was like a cage. Other than that, there were no changes. Trap array. Killing array. Or was it another array? He couldn't figure it out at the moment. Considering the issue of time, Swajin finally took his first step after coming in. Chapter 294. He took a step forward. The scenery changed. Swajin found that he was already in another array. There were a total of 12 sword shadows in the void around him. Soon after, the bodies of the swords swayed, and a terrifying sword aura burst out from them. Instantly, a great sense of danger surged in his heart. There was no time to think. Swajin took a step to the left. While dodging the sword chi, his divine sense spread out. Relying on the power of his divine sense, he quickly wrote runes in the air and formed a defensive array to block the attack of the sword chi. Killing array! At this moment, his face was extremely solemn. Out of all the arrays, he was unlucky enough to draw a killing array. Furthermore, it wasn't as simple as a normal killing array. Array within an array? Just now, I didn't even enter the array. Only now did I truly trigger the array. Swajin took a deep breath at the changes in the two scenes. The means of an array master. Once again, she let him experience a different kind of elegance. At this moment, Swajin didn't dare to waste any more time. His divine sense spread out bit by bit, looking for the flaws of the array. The 12 sword phantoms around him, in his opinion, might be the core of the array. The defensive array that was set up around him. At this moment, it was silently enduring the attacks of the sword chi. Although it was a miniature array, its attack power wasn't weak at all. Swajin could feel the aura of death contained within the sword chi. If he was hit by the sword chi, even if he was a prominent divine stage cultivator, he wouldn't be able to withstand it. Every time the defensive array was about to break, Swajin would reinforce the array to maintain the operation of the defensive array. Similarly, every time he reinforced the array, it would consume a certain amount of his divine sense. If it was only for a short period of time, it would be fine. But if it was for a long time, his divine sense would be exhausted and the array would collapse. At that time, it would be a dead end. Outside, Jontinius sat on the judge's seat. He looked at the cultivators who were sitting cross-legged on the high platform and silently comprehending the array. His face remained calm from start to finish. From the start of the competition until now. A quarter of an hour had passed. Everyone was immersed in their thoughts. No one broke the array to advance, and no one was attacked by the array and forced to withdraw from the competition. As for the people below the high platform, they were all nervously looking at the progress of the competition. Another quarter of an hour passed. A cultivator who was sitting cross-legged and silently comprehending the array suddenly screamed and spat out a few mouthfuls of blood towards the sky. Soon after, he fell to the ground. His eyes were unfocused, and he was already dead. Hiss! Seeing this scene, many people secretly sucked in a cold breath. Isn't that the Han clan's array master? Rumor has it that he's a mid-tier array master. Who would have thought that he wouldn't even be able to pass the first round and would die in the competition? From the looks of it, it should be because of the killing array. Even an intermediate array master can't hold on for long. This competition is too difficult. Fortunately, I didn't go up. Otherwise, I might have died there. Someone who knew the fallen cultivator couldn't help but exclaim in shock. As for the people at the side, they were also discussing spiritedly. No one had expected this. It was just a simple competition, but someone had actually lost their life. They could be considered to have understood exactly how great of a risk one would have to bear by participating in Sky Origin sex competition. A cultivator had died. Immediately, someone came forward and carried him away. As for the other cultivators on the high platform, they were not affected at all. They were all immersed in the formation. These people's minds had entered the Jade Stone. They had already been trapped by the formation. Even if they were facing a life-and-death situation, if they couldn't break through the formation, they wouldn't be able to wake up. As for the other side, the forging competition was also in full swing. As the preliminary round, the assessment was a Grade 1 refined weapon. All the cultivators had to forge a Grade 1 refined weapon within 2 hours. Therefore, those who could complete the forging before the time limit were considered to have advanced to the finals. This was also the reason why low-tier blacksmiths were not allowed to participate in this competition. A Grade 1 refined weapon. Only the top mid-tier blacksmiths could forge it. Of course, the materials for this competition were all provided by Sky Origin Sect. After all, Sky Origin Sect was now a big family, and there was no problem in providing the materials needed for a small competition. Time passed bit by bit. There were also people who began to advance one after another. After all, many of the people who came to participate in the competition this time were veteran upper-tier blacksmiths. Forging a Grade 1 refined weapon wasn't too difficult for them, although it was a little unfair for some mid-tier blacksmiths. That was how the cultivation world was. There was no age difference, only the level of cultivation. Puff! Puff! Another 2 people vomited blood one after another. However, compared to the formation master surnamed Han who died at the beginning, these 2 people were only seriously injured in their divine senses and didn't die directly. Looking at the broken jade in their hands, their already pale faces seemed to have turned even paler. Subsequently, before Zhang Tinya could speak, the 2 people struggled to get up from the ground. They cupped their hands toward Zhang Tinya in the referee's seat and directly turned to leave the high platform. Zhang Tinya didn't stop them. It was normal for there to be losers in the competition. However, as some people failed, naturally, there were also people who advanced. There was a glimmer of light floating on the high platform. A person who was sitting still suddenly stood up with a carefree smile on his face. He then cupped his hands toward the referee's seat and said, "Law enforcing elder, I have cracked the formation. Please wait aside." Zhang Tinya nodded slightly. "Thank you." That person cupped his hands and thanked him again. Then, he walked to the side and sat down cross-legged. Time passed bit by bit. More than half of the sand in the hourglass had disappeared. After the first person advanced, the second and third person soon advanced. As the last rune fell, Zuijin saw the 12 sword shadows tremble violently as if they had suffered a terrible attack. Finally, they exploded with a bang in front of his eyes. Then, the scenery changed. However, in the blink of an eye, he found that his mind had returned to the high platform. When he looked at his hand again, the jade was lying there quietly. The only difference was that the miniature formation engraved on it had disappeared. He passed? Zuijin was a little absent-minded. Looking at the remaining 1/4 of the hourglass, he stood up and cupped his hands toward Zhang Tinya, saying, "I was lucky to pass. Please move to the side and wait." "Thank you, elder." Looking at the corner of the high platform where 7 or 8 people were sitting, Zuijin was stunned for a moment. He didn't expect that so many people would succeed before him. However, this also made him understand that there was always someone better than him. Although he was a high-grade formation master, in his original family, he was the top formation master. But now, in Cold Mountain City, there were no less than 10 high-grade formation masters. In comparison, although his strength wasn't weak, he hadn't reached the top level. However, for Zuijin, it didn't matter whether he was the first one to break the formation or not. What mattered was that he could advance in the competition and take the opportunity to enter the Origin Sect. At that time, he might be able to receive guidance from the Formation Grandmaster. To become a Formation Grandmaster. This had always been his wish. However, the Formation Dao of Baiyun Mansion had declined. Zuijin had used up half of his life to cultivate to the level of a high-grade Formation Master. If he wanted to become a Grandmaster, without a heaven-defying opportunity, it was simply impossible. As he walked to the corner of the high platform, the others cupped their hands towards Zuijin. He also cupped his hands in return. Those who could advance in the preliminary competition. They were all not weak formation masters. Although there would be competitors later, there was no need to put on airs. One more friend meant one more path. Who knows, they might be useful in the future. After Zwajin advanced, another 7 or 8 people successfully advanced to the next level. At this time, Zwajin glanced around him. There were already more than 10 people who succeeded. It seems that these people will be my competitors in the final competition later. 80 to 90% of the 2 hours had passed. Those who could break the formation had already succeeded. Those who couldn't break the formation in the remaining time didn't have a high probability of breaking the formation. As expected, when the last bit of sand fell, another 2 people succeeded in breaking the array at the last moment. After that, no one else advanced to the next round. Seeing this, Zhang Tinia took out a jade stone and crushed it with force. An invisible wave spread out from his hand and soon covered the high platform. All the cultivators who were still trapped in the formation woke up at this time. Looking at the situation around them and the hourglass that no longer had sand falling, their faces couldn't help but turn gloomy. Failed. Just a little bit more, and I'll be able to break the formation. I hope Elder can give me another chance. Some cultivators couldn't believe this result and lost their composure as they shouted. For people like this, Zhang Tinia directly asked someone to take them away. Then, he got up, looked at the crowd and said, "All the people who advanced stay here. As for those who failed, please leave the high platform. May I ask when the next competition will be?" A loser didn't leave immediately, but cupped his hands and asked. After that, the rest of the people looked at Zhang Tinia. Hearing this, Zhang Tinia pondered for a while and said, "I don't know the specific time, but if there is a chance, my sect will definitely send out the news. At that time, you can come again." "Thank you." The man cupped his hands and turned to leave the high platform. Although he didn't get the news he wanted, he felt a little regretful. But a failure was a failure. There was nothing to say. After all the people who failed to advance left, Zhang Tinia looked at the other people who advanced and said loudly, "First of all, congratulations on your successful advancement. Now you can rest for 2 hours. Then I will announce the method of the final competition." After that, he sat back in his original position. As for the others, they didn't waste any time. They all closed their eyes and adjusted their breath, trying to recover as much as possible. Chapter 295. The final round of the blacksmith's competition was divided into 2 parts. Yuan Zone would provide the corresponding weapon. The middle-ranked blacksmiths had to forge a weapon that could cut through Yuan Zone's weapon. As for the high-ranked blacksmiths, they would be competing in forging spiritual weapons. The longest period was 3 days. As long as they could successfully forge a spiritual weapon, they would stand out and win the final round. For the high-ranked blacksmiths, it was definitely not an easy task to forge a low-grade spiritual weapon. Many people who had been in this realm for decades were not confident that they could forge a spiritual weapon in one go. Therefore, this was a test of their forging skills and also their luck. As for the Array Masters competition, it was much simpler in the end. At the same time, Yuan Zone would provide an array. However, the difference was, this time, it was not about breaking the array. Instead, it was about staying in the array for 2 hours without being defeated. That would be considered a victory. If he failed within 2 hours, then he would be the first to die. They would lose the right to compete. During the competition outside Liangshan City, it naturally attracted the attention of many cultivators. Compared to the Array Masters Divine while breaking the array, however, the blacksmiths were much more lively. Especially when the spiritual weapon was formed, the lightning tribulation would fall. It was even more eye-catching. In the past few days, lightning tribulations would often fall outside Liangshan City. There were at least 3 to 5 lightning tribulations and at most 10 to 20 lightning tribulations. As for the recruitment of disciples, after a few days of selection, it was finally nearing the end. Sect Leader, we've recruited a total of 12,786 people this time. Among them, 7,653 are mutants. Within the inherited martial hall, an outer sect elder in charge of recruiting disciples, Zhao Shanlin, was reporting the statistics this time. Qin Shujian, who was standing at the side, was listening silently. This time, Yuan Zong had recruited a total of 12,000 people. Together with the original 10,000 people, Yuan Zong was now a super sect with 20,000 people, close to 30,000 people. He knew this. Even the sects of the Great Domain only had a few thousand disciples at most. In other words, the current number of people in Yuan Zone was several times that of the sects in the big regions. Coupled with the fact that they had an array master, Yuan Zone could be considered an overlord sect. Excluding the mutants, how many people are above the true force realm? There are a total of 1367 people above the true martial realm. Without hesitation, Zhao Shanlin said. In addition, there are 126 people of the spirit martial realm and 13 people of the god martial realm. What are your arrangements? Those above the spiritual martial realm, let them come to the inherited martial hall to see me. If they are suitable, I will give them the position of outer sect guest. As for the rest, they will all be included among the outer sect disciples and promoted according to the assessment standards. Qin Shujian said lightly. To the current Yuan Zone, true martial realm cultivators were nothing. Those that were pleasing to the eye. Only cultivators above the spirit martial realm could do it. If one was to be serious, then even a domain enlightened spirit god wasn't really qualified. However, he didn't care too much about it. After all, a high-ranking guest elder was equivalent to an outer sect elder, while a low-ranking guest elder was only equivalent to a deacon. They didn't have any real power. Of course, if he made any contributions in the future, he could also be accepted into the Yuan sect and become a person with real power. Thinking of this, Qin Shuyan said again. This time, if there are people below the age of 12 with excellent constitution and aptitude, we can focus on nurturing them. Although they will be included in the outer sect, we will open an extra courtyard to teach cultivation methods and martial arts. Within 3 months, those without cultivation who can step into the third level of the martial realm can stay. If they have cultivation and are above the third level of the martial realm, they can also stay if they break through their original realm within 3 months. As for the others, those who are not qualified will be sent back. Yes. Okay, you can go and take care of things. Yes. Zhao Shanlin left respectfully. Not long after, the 100 over-cultivators above the spirit martial realm had already arrived at the inherited martial hall. Fortunately, the inherited martial hall had been expanded once. It was more than enough to accommodate more than 100 people. Greetings, Sect Master. Everyone, please rise. Qin Shujian smiled and raised his hand. He looked at the crowd and said, Since you are willing to join my sect, I will not treat you badly. Speaking of which, he glanced around and continued, A cultivator in the spirit martial realm can be a red-stamped guest of the outer gate, with the same status as an outer gate deacon. A great cultivator in the god martial realm can be called a golden-stamped guest of the outer gate, with the same status as an outer gate elder. Is this acceptable? We have no objections. Good. Qin Shujian stood up and activated his spiritual eye. He then looked at the people in the hall. Suddenly, everyone's attributes had already appeared in his eyes. When he used his spiritual eye, these people felt an inexplicable chill in their bodies. But no one moved. After a while, Qin Shujian withdrew his gaze. At the same time, the 1,000 mountain blood, which was placed in the inherited martial hall, was suddenly unsheathed. The deep cold saber light reflected a snow-white light in the hall. Streaks of lightning appeared like ribbons, and the imposing manner that was like the might of the heavens made everyone's mind freeze. The next moment, the long blade chopped down. A cultivator in the god martial realm suddenly exploded and attacked Qin Shujian with his palm. However, before the attack could reach him, the shadow of a 4th-grade golden lotus bloomed and blocked the palm completely. The attack missed. The cultivator in the god martial realm immediately took out a jade talisman and crushed it. Boom! A terrifying attack instantly exploded in the void. The vast power made the fourth-grade golden lotus shine brightly. But even with the defensive power of a top-notch two-seal Dao artifact, they couldn't withstand this terrifying attack at all. In just 2 breaths of time, the golden lotus illusion was directly shattered. The remaining power of the attack bombarded Qin Shujian. Buzz! A light blue shield was raised and blocked the attack again. At the same time, Qin Shujian took a step back. With a wave of his hand, a large array was formed and instantly covered the attack. The two collided. A terrifying gust of wind spread out, causing the hall to tremble violently. At the same time, the god martial realm cultivator lightly tapped the ground with the tip of his foot and rushed out of the hall. You want to leave? Qin Shujian's eyes were cold. He sent out another sealing formation, forcing the god martial realm cultivator to a stop before he could even fly out of the hall. Then, the blade fell and the corpse was decapitated. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. Only after everything was settled did the others suddenly come to their senses. This is the heavenly decree. Those who were knowledgeable recalled the attack that caused one's soul to tremble, and their faces were filled with shock. As for the others, they were all the same. In response to the others' reactions, Qin Shujian said casually, "It's just a bunch of rascals who wanted to cause trouble in the sect. Now that they've been killed, please go to the outer sect's elder Zhao. He'll make the appropriate arrangements for you. We'll take our leave." This time, everyone's attitude was much more respectful. The reason they entered the Origin sect was because of Qin Shujian's reputation. Besides that, they saw the Origin sect's potential. Although the Origin sect was only a sect in the spirit region, with Qin Shujian's existence, it was a top sect. However, this top sect was supported by one person and was short of manpower. They didn't even have a cultivator in the god martial realm or the prominent sage realm. This way, when they entered the Origin sect, whether it was their status or benefits, it would be much better than if they entered other sections. And as the Origin sect grew stronger in the future, guests like them, they would also be able to enjoy the benefits of the sect. However, because apart from Qin Shujian, the cultivation of the others in the Origin sect wasn't high, it was inevitable that these people would be arrogant. But now, the power that contained the heavenly strike couldn't do anything to the other party. Even a great cultivator in the god martial realm was killed with a single slash. A great cultivator in the god martial realm was killed just like that. And it didn't take much effort. This also proved one thing from another perspective. It was easy for the other party to kill a great cultivator in the god martial realm. Killing them was also as easy as flipping his hand. This was another kind of deterrence. After the others had left, Qin Shujian looked at the corpse on the ground that hadn't been refreshed yet. Then, he bent down to search it. A minute later, he stood up from the ground and looked at the corpse that had died with its eyes wide open, speechless. The corpse of the god martial realm in front of him was cleaner than the beggars on the roadside. It didn't carry a single valuable item. After a moment of speechlessness, Qin Shujian looked at the corpse on the ground. His eyes flashed with a cold light. Using the heavenly strike to assassinate. Even a great cultivator in the god martial realm was sacrificed. I'm afraid there aren't many forces capable of doing this. When he used his spirit eye just now, the other party's loyalty of -98 had already appeared before his eyes. At first, Qin Shujian only thought that the other party was a spy sent by another force to infiltrate the Origin sect and prepare for what would happen next. In the end, the other party was actually an assassin, and he carried the heavenly strike with him. If it weren't for the fact that his golden lotus had advanced from the 3rd stage to the 4th stage, and that he'd refined the dustless immortal robe, he might have really fallen this time. As time passed, the corpse on the ground had already disappeared. Qin Shujian's eyes flickered again. He said to himself, I didn't want to interfere too much. Unfortunately, there are always unruly people who want to harm me. I can't be a peaceful sect master. Do I have to side with the imperial court to be satisfied? Using a heavenly strike and sacrificing a great cultivator in the god martial realm. There weren't many forces capable of doing this. And the power of this heavenly strike was exactly the same as the power that those players used to sneak attack the Chaos Blood army. He didn't need to guess too much. He could also understand that this was Marquis Qianshan's doing. However, Qin Shujian didn't expect that Marquis Qianshan would kill him so fiercely. Marquis Qianshan used one method after another. First, he wanted to lure the demons into the Liang Mountain spirit region and create a demon disaster to destroy the foundation of the Origin sect. Now, he even openly sent someone to assassinate him. Qin Shujian never thought of himself as a person who would take a beating without fighting back. Marquis Qianshan's actions now. It made him angry. Chapter 296. There was quite a commotion in the inherited martial hall. Naturally, it attracted the attention of the other experts in Yuan's sect. When Jingfang and the others arrived, they saw Qin Shujian sitting in the main seat. His expression was calm, and no one could tell what he was feeling. Sect Master, what happened just now? Jingfang looked at the bronze pillars and the four walls in the inherited martial hall. They were covered with cracks and looked like they would break at any time. He was shocked again. One had to know. Although the inherited martial hall was not a spiritual weapon like Cold Mountain City, it was still very sturdy. To cause the current situation. He only needed to think about it to know what kind of terrifying attack it would be. As for Niu Feng and the others. At this moment, their faces were filled with shock. Qin Shujian waved his hand and said, "It's just a god martial arts realm cultivator who came to assassinate you with the heavenly decree. I've already settled the matter. Don't worry about it. This is my fault. Please punish me, Sect Master." Jingfang suddenly bowed and asked for forgiveness. This time, he, as the Grand Elder, was in charge of the recruitment of guest elders. Now, such a problem had occurred. He also had something to do with it that was difficult for him to get rid of. Qin Shujian said calmly, "It's not your fault. Let's forget about it for the time being." "Thank you, Sect Master. I wonder if the results of the competition in Cold Mountain City are out?" Qin Shujian did not mention what had just happened. He then looked at Xing Yuqing and Zhang Tiniu. Hearing this, the two of them looked at each other. In the end, Xing Yuqing cupped his hands and said, "This time, there are a total of 7 upper-grade blacksmiths and 3 middle-grade blacksmiths. They all hope to enter Yuan's sect and become guests." Then, Zhang Tiniu also said, "This time, there are a total of 13 people who completed the sect master's request. 12 of them are upper-grade array masters and 1 is a middle-grade array master. They all hope to become guests of Yuan's sect." "Middle-grade array master?" Hearing this, Qin Shujian's eyebrows twitched slightly, and he looked a little surprised. He knew how powerful the array he had set up was. Even if he deliberately went easy on them, it was still not something that an ordinary array master could contend against. According to Qin Shujian's speculation, those who passed the assessment this time should be high-grade array masters. Now that there was a middle-grade array master mixed in, he couldn't help but be curious. "What's his name?" "His name is Wujin, and he's from a declining family that specializes in formations." "Left?" Qin Shujian muttered the name to himself, memorizing it. Shortly after, he opened his mouth again and said, "Let them come to the Martial Inheritance Hall to see me." "Yes." Inside the Qingwu Hall, 23 people stood there in 2 groups, and the scene was somewhat calm. When everyone looked at the main seat, there was an undetectable reverence on their faces. Among these people, there were experts in the spirit martial realm. There were also experts in the god martial arts realm. However, without exception, they were all blacksmiths or formation masters, and they were extremely passionate about this path. Qin Shujian was a grandmaster in 2 fields. The news had already spread far and wide. The reason why they were willing to join the Yuan sect was that there was a Grand Master in 2 fields in the Yuan sect. A Grand Master in 1 field. He had reached the peak. He could be regarded as the peak of 1 field. He was the goal that others yearned to pursue, and the existence that they should respect. Everyone here is outstanding in this competition. To put it bluntly, your skills in forging Dao and formation Dao are among the upper echelons in Baiyun Mansion, Qin Shujian said with a faint smile. I welcome you to join the Yuan sect. Now there is a casting hall in our sect, and anyone who is proficient in casting can join. I wonder if you have any objections? In the end, his gaze landed on one of the teams of 10. Hearing this, the 10 people all cupped their hands and said, We have no objections. Good. Qin Shujian nodded. When his spiritual eye swept over, everyone's attributes appeared in his eyes. Although everyone's loyalty was different, it was different. But there was one thing in common. That was, there was no negative loyalty. To this, he was quite satisfied in his heart. Since there were no negative loyalty points, it meant that there were no traitors here. Qin Shujian valued these technical talents quite a bit. After all, it took a lot of time and effort to cultivate an upper-grade casting master. Even if he preached to people every day as a Grand Master, he might not be able to produce an upper-grade casting master in a few years. Moreover, Qin Shujian did not have so much time. When the others felt a chill, he said again, The casting hall master is the referee of this competition, Elder Xin Yuqing. When you leave the inherited martial hall, someone will lead you to the casting hall. We will take our leave. Qin Shujian's words were very clear. The others were not tactless people. After bowing respectfully, they directly left. For them, as long as they entered the casting hall, they would naturally have time and opportunity to meet this Grand Master in the future. After the casting hall left, only then did Qin Shujian's gaze fall on the 13 formation masters. Suddenly, many people felt a great pressure. After a while, he then said, Now the sect has not opened the formation hall, but today, with all of you joining, the formation hall has been opened. The position of the hall master is equivalent to that of an inner elder. As for the position of the hall master, at this point, Qin Shujian paused. As for the others, although they still looked calm, they were very excited in their hearts. The meaning of the other party's words, no one would not know. If they could become the formation hall master, they would be considered to be in the upper echelons of Yuan sect. This was simply a step to the sky. However, although they were excited, they did not interrupt Qin Shujian. Everyone wanted to be the hall master. But it was not a position that could be taken by just anyone. If one was not good, it might even cause a negative impact. 3 days later, I will personally hold a competition. The only winner will be the elder of the formation hall. The rest of the people can be the formation hall's consecrators with the same status as the inner deacons. We will obey the sect master's order. All right, you all can leave for now. Someone will arrange the follow-up matters for you. We will take our leave. Everyone cupped their hands and left. When Qin Shujian spoke just now, he also used his spiritual eye to check the attributes of these people. No one's loyalty was negative. However, he took another look at the man named Zhu Jin, whom Shang Tinu had mentioned. Just a simple look. It was hard to see too much. It was just an impression left in his mind. To be able to stand out in the competition as a middle-grade formation master. In addition to proving the other party's strength, it also proved that the other party's foundation and talent in the formation Dao was also beyond the reach of ordinary people. Such a person, if cultivated, he could be a good helper. Now that things had come to this, it was finally over. Next, the sect should be quiet. There will be no possibility of opening the mountain gate for a long time in the future. Qin Shujian secretly shook his head. This time, a large number of disciples were recruited in the mountain gate opening. In a short period of time. This was the last time Yuan sect opened the mountain gate. After all, So far, Yuan sect was a top sect with more than 20,000 people. In terms of the number of people, it could be called the largest sect in Baiyun Prefecture. Such a number of people. It had already reached a saturation point. If they continued to recruit people, a sect with 50,000 or 100,000 people was no longer as simple as a sect. It was comparable to the power of a feudal lord. In this way, the imperial court would probably not be happy about it. Even Marquis Baiyun sighed. They would also be afraid of Yuan sect. Once it aroused the suspicion of the imperial court, they would either dispel the suspicion or wait for the day when the enemy came. So far, Qin Shujian did not intend to be enemies with the imperial court. Although Yuan sect was now a top sect, it was only a comparison in the cultivation world. If Yuan sect was placed on the opposite side of the imperial court, there was no need for anything else. As long as 2 or 3 celestial beings took action, they could easily wipe out Yuan sect. When the time came, even if he, a formation master, could escape unscathed, the foundation of the Liang Mountain spirit domain would be completely destroyed. Of course, in addition to avoiding arousing the suspicion of the imperial court, it was also because Yuan sect had improved too quickly, causing the realm of the disciples to be uneven, and they also lacked top experts. That is, if Qin Shujian, the array master, was not included, they would also abandon the guests. The most powerful beings in the Yuan sect were only a few airborne realm cultivators. With such strength, leading a sect of more than 20,000 people was undoubtedly a very difficult task. Therefore, combined with the current situation of Yuan sect, Qin Shujian had already decided to let Yuan sect slowly digest and steadily improve the strength of the sect. Only then would he consider the next step. As for harvesting the source of life, with the original number of Yuan sect disciples, they could normally contribute 50,000 to 60,000 source of life every day. Now, the number of people had almost doubled. It was not to say that the amount of source of life would double, but it could at least increase by 30 to 50%. And when the strength of these people was further improved, the amount of source of life they contributed would also increase by several times. In general, Yuan sect had now reached a saturation point in all aspects, or it had reached the level that Qin Shujian had expected. The only thing that was lacking, it was a problem of overall strength. As long as these were digested step by step, then Qin Shujian would have the confidence to say that 3 years of divine martial arts, 10 years of celestial beings, 20 years of celestial beings, and so on. 30 to 50 years was a long time. For his current lifespan of at least 1,000 years, a few years or even decades was only a very small part of a long life. Although Qin Shujian had not lived that long and could not fully understand the feeling of a snap of a finger, as his cultivation improved day by day, he gradually had a different kind of understanding. Chapter 297. A God Martial Arts Realm Assassination. Using the Heavenly Decree. As long as the cultivator spoke, it was impossible to hide the matter. Therefore, news of what had happened in the inherited martial hall had already spread. In the spirit realm, a great cultivator of the God Martial realm was a top-notch expert. As a result, the death of a strange God Martial Arts realm cultivator also caused a lot of shock. However, compared to the God Martial Arts realm, the Heavenly Decree was undoubtedly more shocking. Because the appearance of the Heavenly Decree meant that a heavenly realm existence had attacked Yuan Zone. If it was an ordinary sect of the spirit realm, it would be destroyed in the blink of an eye if it was targeted by a heavenly realm expert. But Yuan Zone was different. Qin Shujian, the array master, was a different kind of heavenly realm expert. Moreover, through this news, everyone noticed one thing. That was, the only weakness of an array master was that if the array was not set up successfully, it could not exert its powerful power. Therefore, if one wanted to deal with an array master, one had to be so powerful that even the array could not deal with it, or take advantage of the fact that the array was not set up to kill him directly. But now it seemed The heavenly decree that contained the heavenly realm attack could not kill him. 2 Tao artifacts to protect him. He was in an invincible position. Heavenly realm assassination! Marquis Bayun naturally collected the information about the heavenly realm as soon as possible. In the main hall. Below, a middle-aged man who looked like a refined scholar said with a solemn expression, "The assassination of a heavenly realm expert can't do anything to an array master. It seems that the other party has really matured. Isn't that good? The stronger he is, the more advantageous it is for our Bayun mansion." Marquis Bayun smiled faintly. "But Gu Chongqing's action is really foolish." The heavenly decree. Just by thinking about it, one could basically be sure that it was Marquis Qianshan who did it. Marquis Qianshan was now impregnable, partly because of his foundation, and partly because of the existence of the 2 array masters. Now, Bayun Mansion had 1 more array master. This was an invisible threat to Marquis Qianshan. After all, array masters were different. On the battlefield, a formation grandmaster was like an executioner. Even if several Deva cultivators joined forces, they might not be able to match up to him. If he wanted to go on a punitive expedition against Duke Qianshan, he had to deal with the 2 array Dao grandmasters. If Marquis Bayun had not been confident that he could pull Qin Shijian to his side, then Marquis Qianshan's successive actions were equivalent to pushing Qin Shijian to the side of the imperial court. "Marquis, do you think that Qin Shijian knows who did it? You underestimate him." Marquis Bayun shook his head slightly and said, "There are some things that don't need to be mentioned. He knows about it. It won't be long before the human emperor's decree comes again. At that time, I'm afraid my Bayun mansion will have to send out our troops again. The power behind Gu Chongqing is very well hidden. We tried our best to investigate but didn't find any useful clues. Instead, we lost a few prominent divine stage cultivators and a god martial stage cultivator. Within the borders of the Great Xiao, what faction dares to oppose the imperial court? Marquis, could it be a demon?" "It's possible." Marquis Bayun nodded and said faintly, "These years, the demon has been suppressed in the Skyan Mountains. They've long been unwilling to accept it. They've always wanted to rush into the Great Xiao and plunder the flesh and blood of living creatures. In terms of strength, the demon has the right to fight against the imperial court. But," Marquis Bayun changed the topic and said again, "the demon king was severely injured by the human emperor. For thousands of years, whether he's still alive is a question. Could it be that the demon king has recovered?" At the mention of the demon king, Marquis Bayun's face was solemn. The human race had a supreme existence like the human emperor. The demon race also had a demon king. Back then, the human emperor was able to conquer the world and establish the foundation of the Great Zhao for thousands of years because he had a fierce battle with the demon race. In the end, the demon king was defeated and was severely injured. He retreated to the Skyan Mountains with a group of demons. Although the demon king was defeated by the human emperor, it didn't mean that the demon king was weak. On the contrary, to be able to fight against the human emperor and survive after losing, the other party's strength had reached a level that could pierce through heaven and earth. If the demon king's injuries had really recovered, then the demon race would be a huge problem. But there's one thing I don't understand. Since the demon king was defeated, why didn't the human emperor take the opportunity to kill his way into the Skyan Mountains and completely kill the demon race? The demon race has existed since the beginning of heaven and earth. Our human race can't compare to their foundation. The Skyan Mountains are the origin of the demon race. It's easier said than done to kill their way in. Marquis Bayun shook his head and said, "If they could really kill their way into the Skyan Mountains, the demon race would have no place to stay. But there were some things." He wouldn't say too much. Instead, he changed the topic and said calmly, "But the human emperor once said that the demon king's injuries couldn't be healed. After so many years, he might have died. Continue to send people to investigate the movements behind Gu Chongqing." Yes. Qin Shijian didn't care about the movements in the outside world. Marquis Qianshan sent people to assassinate him. This grudge was formed. However, Marquis Qianshan was the biggest rebel force with more than 1,000,000 soldiers under his command. There were also many experts around him. It would not be easy for him to get back at Marquis Qianshan alone. Moreover, the Yuan sect had just recruited disciples. There were still many things to deal with. He couldn't care so much for the time being. After setting up the array formation hall, Qin Shujian used his identity as an array formation grandmaster to assess the 13 array formation masters again. In the end, he chose one of the array formation masters to become the hall master of the array formation hall. At the same time, he was given the identity of an inner sect elder. As for the other party's loyalty, when his identity was changed, it had already risen to more than 70 points. Although this value wasn't very high. But for now, it was enough. More than 70 points of loyalty. As long as there weren't any major changes, there was almost no possibility of betrayal. Moreover, as time passed, the loyalty would continue to rise. Of course, if Qin Shujian discovered that the other party's loyalty continued to drop, then the position of the hall master of the array formation hall would come to an end. As for the Zhujian mentioned by Zhang Tinu, Qin Shujian also deliberately observed him. In the end, he found that the other party was indeed very talented in array formation. Moreover, he had accumulated a lot of knowledge about array formation. Although he was a middle-grade array formation master, in terms of knowledge, he wasn't much weaker than a high-grade array formation master. In time, the other party would definitely break through his current realm. More importantly, the other party's age wasn't even 100 years old. At such a young age, he was already in the 5th level of the spiritual martial realm. At the same time, he had the standard of a middle-grade array formation master. Whether it was the talent for cultivation or array formation master, he was considered to be the best choice. Therefore, Qin Shujian really remembered the names Wu Jin. If such a talent was cultivated properly, in time, perhaps the Sky Origin sect would have another array Dao Grandmaster. As for master, he wasn't sure that he could cultivate a master. After all, it was difficult to become a master. Even if Qin Shujian himself was a array formation master, he wasn't very sure that he could cultivate someone equal to himself. After the array formation hall was established, he also put the 30 array formation masters of the Baiyun Marquis Mansion into the array formation hall. He had promised Xiao Hong before. At least 2 high-grade array formation masters in 3 years. The words had been spoken. Then there was no possibility of going back on his words. Most of the 30 people were low-grade array formation masters. Only a small number of them were middle-grade array formation masters. Relying on the number of high-grade array formation masters in the array formation hall, it wasn't a difficult thing to impart array formation knowledge. At the same time, the news about the treatment of the people in the alchemy, casting, and array formation halls had also spread completely in the Yuan sect. 100 low-grade, 500 middle-grade, 2,000 high-grade, and 10,000 array formation masters. This treatment is really high. Haha, I'm already at the top of the apprentice level. The Celestial Blue Alchemy Scrolls experience is about to reach the promotion standard. It won't be long before I can be promoted to a low-grade alchemist. I want to ask, is it too late to learn array formation now? When the news was announced, some people were happy and some were sad. For the players, the 3 halls were similar to the existence of secondary professions. The main profession was cultivation. The secondary profession was support. The 2 of them didn't actually conflict. Early on, when the 2 halls were established, there were many players who joined them and learned some superficial knowledge. However, most of them were only at the apprentice level and couldn't even be considered to be at the entry level. As for the reward system that was announced now, at the very least, one had to be at the entry level to enjoy this treatment. Many of the Yuan sect disciples who were stuck at the last step had also made up their minds to break through the current threshold. One had to know. 100 contribution points didn't seem like much, but in fact, it wasn't little at all. Moreover, many a little makes a mickle. That was also a considerable amount of income. Moreover, the reward was secondary. Once the support profession was at the entry level, the items that were refined would be officially on the table. Even if it was purely to sell or hand it over to the sect, one would be able to obtain a considerable amount of contribution points as a reward. On the other side, just as everyone was getting interested in the new reward system, Zhang Zian suddenly changed his mind. Qin Shujian consumed 1 million points of life force and directly issued a large-scale mission to all the Yuan sect players through the system. The content of the mission. It was to enter Qianshan Marquis and kill the experts under Qianshan Marquis. According to the level of the kill, the rewards would be completely different. As for the players after seeing the mission prompt, all of their eyes were shining and their hearts were suddenly burning with passion. Especially the last mission. Killing a celestial realm cultivator or an array master would be rewarded with a 2-seal Dao artifact and 1 million contribution points. After seeing this, everyone was in an uproar. Although the difficulty of this mission was very high and could be said to be at the epic level. But for the players, as long as the mission was issued, there was a possibility of completing it. At most, it was a matter of probability. Chapter 298. Compared to the almost zero probability of killing a divine man cultivator. Killing an array master. But it was relatively easier. Of course. No matter how easy it was still extremely difficult to assassinate a formation Dao Grandmaster. But other than assassinating these top experts, God Martial Realm cultivators, Spiritual Martial Realm cultivators, and even true Martial Realm cultivators, as long as one killed them, one would receive the corresponding rewards and a huge amount of experience points. For the current players, it was pitifully rare to trigger a mission with a huge amount of experience points. Especially now that there were too many monks and too little porridge in Yuan sect. With more than 10,000 players in a sect, it was not easy to successfully accept a mission. How about we team up for this mission? Are you kidding? Looking at Yi Jing'an, Song Qing sneered. Back then when the newcomers stabbed him in the back. Although he was slightly stronger in the end and got the Ghost King Orchid, he still remembered this incident. Yi Jing'an did not mind and smiled faintly. Senior brother Song, you don't have to be so calculative. If I had encountered the Ghost King Orchid, you would have definitely taken action. I see that your strength is one of the best in Yuan sect. And you have seen my strength, Yi Jing'an. If the two of us work together and arrange it properly, it is not impossible for us to kill a cultivator of the spirit martial realm. Hearing this, Song Qing fell silent. Although he had some conflicts with Yi Jing'an, he rather acknowledged Yi Jing'an's strength. A spiritual martial realm cultivator worth 20,000 contribution points. This is a rare opportunity. Yi Jing'an continued. He was not lying. As their levels got higher, the items they needed to exchange were more expensive. Each exchange required tens of thousands of contribution points, which was the normal standard. Plus, the current mission did not give much contribution points. In this way, the Yuan sect's players were rather short on money. After a while, Song Qing looked deeply at Yi Jing'an and nodded. We can team up. But just the two of us. Is there no one else? The more people there are, the bigger the target. Plus, there are not many physical invulnerability realm cultivators at this stage. What's the use of having more people? It might even expose our whereabouts. When do you plan to leave? Senior brother, you can decide. Then tomorrow at noon. All right, see you then. Yi Jing'an nodded and turned to leave. As for Song Qing, he didn't do anything. As for Yi Jing'an, he had some understanding in his heart. Previously, Shifeng had thought that he was just an ordinary player. However, after the battle in the new district, Shifeng realized that he was not ordinary at all. Previously, he looked ordinary. Either the other party was deliberately hiding it, or they didn't want to reveal it. But no matter what the reason was, Song Qing had already set his heart on the other party. Such a situation was only a small part of Yuan Zhong's situation. After Qin Shujian issued this task through the system, Qin Fengqing was stunned. 90% of the players. They were all tempted. After all, very few players would refuse such a generous quest reward. As for the difficulty of the mission, this was not a problem for them. He was not afraid of the difficulty of the mission. He was afraid that there would be no missions for them to do. Very soon, some players arrived at Cold Mountain City and showed their sect's disciple identity token. They then passed through the teleportation gate and arrived at any city in the Cold Mountain Spirit Domain. This was a portal that had been opened. Those who were elite disciples and above could try it for free. As for those who were elite disciples and below, they only had to pay 1/3 of the fee. This was because the teleportation gate was only connected to the Cold Mountain Spirit Domain. Any place that could be reached through this teleportation gate, they could only be within the Cold Mountain Spirit Domain. If one wanted to go to other regions or even other prefectures, they would need to change teleportation gates many times. Thousand Mountains Prefecture. Now, such a large prefecture had been divided into two. One side was firmly controlled by the Imperial Court's forces, and the other side was controlled by the rebel forces led by Marquis Qianshan. Compared to the other rebels, Marquis Qianshan's faction had been overseeing a region since the establishment of the Great Shao. They had long been deeply rooted here, and their prestige was also quite high. So, even if Marquis Qianshan rebelled, he still received the support of many people and even the cultivation sects. Now, the two forces were in a standoff. Almost every 2 or 3 days, there would be some conflicts. Both sides would throw some corpses at each other and retreat. As for the big war, whether it was the Imperial Court or Marquis Qianshan, they were more restrained and did not easily erupt. For the Imperial Court, Marquis Qianshan had built half of the prefecture like an iron bucket, and there were many experts overseeing it. The array set up by 2 array Grand Masters was even more profound and unpredictable. If they forcefully attacked, they would only suffer heavy losses. And for the rebel forces, the Imperial Court's foundation was strong. If an all-out conflict erupted, they were still a bit lacking in terms of foundation. So, there were all kinds of misgivings here. But it caused Thousand Mountains Prefecture to fall into a relatively calm state. But anyone could understand. The so-called calm was just a moment of peace before the storm. The Imperial Court would not tolerate the existence of rebel forces. Any rebel forces would eventually be destroyed. Marquis Qianshan was the same. Since he was determined to rebel, he would not be content to stay in a corner. Or else. What was the difference between this and Marquis Qianshan's position in the past? He could not rebel after eating his fill. In front of Yihai City, Song Qing and Yi Jing'an looked at each other, then paid a small entrance fee and directly entered the large city. After entering the city, the two looked at the bustling scene in front of them, and were not too surprised. They looked around from time to time and finally came in front of an inn. After paying some fees, they directly booked 2 rooms. Knock knock. There was a knock on the door. The door is not locked, come in. Song Qing, who was sitting at the tea table, said lightly. After saying that, the door was pushed open. Yi Jing'an walked in from the outside, then locked the door behind him. He sat down opposite Song Qing, then picked up a teacup and poured a cup of tea for himself. We're also in Yihai City. What are you going to do next? What do you think? Song Qing did not answer but asked. Hearing that, Yi Jing'an did not care too much. He pondered for a moment and said, Yihai City is located behind Thousand Mountains Prefecture. According to the geographical location, it should not be an important city. Just now when we entered the city, you saw that although there is a garrison in the city, it is not that deep. But this is the spirit realm. No matter what, there are masters of the spirit martial realm in the city. But the specific number and strength, I have to carefully investigate to be sure. After saying that, Song Qing also said, Let's act separately. In 5 days, we'll explore the situation in the city. If it's too difficult, we'll change places. After all, it's not worth losing a level for nothing. Okay. After the two chatted for a while, Yijing'an got up and went back to the room next to his. In the following days, Song Qing and Yijing'an were investigating the situation in Yihai City. There were many people in the city. As long as they spent some money, it was not difficult to get some information. The only thing they needed to pay attention to was not to expose their identities. On the other side, while the two of them were searching for information, they also encountered some Yuan sect players. Although they were not wearing the sect's disciple uniform. But after staying in the same sect for so long, even if they did not meet often, it was normal to see one or two occasionally. With the cultivator's powerful memory, it wasn't too difficult to remember a face. However, although they would recognize them, no one greeted them. They just pretended not to know each other and passed by. For them, since they did not form a team at the beginning, they would not disturb each other. As for the problem of the mission, there were so many experts in the city. Casually killing a few would give them a lot of experience and contribution points. There was no need to worry about stealing kills. A few days later, in the same room, the two sat opposite each other. This time, Song Qing did not let Yijing'an speak first. Instead, he directly said, "According to my understanding, the city lord of Yihai City should be a great cultivator of the prominent sage realm. The two deputies under him should be around the airborne realm. Apart from that, there are more than a dozen spirit god realm generals. This is the combat strength of the spirit martial realm and above in Yihai City." After Song Qing finished speaking, Yijing'an also said, "There are a total of 8,000 guards in the city. I heard that there are 1,000 elites among them. They are all true martial realm cultivators. However, they hide very well and usually do not show themselves easily. As for the other guards, they are not strong and are basically at the basic realm. But these troops are equipped with bows and crossbows. Once surrounded, unless we can fly, there is no possibility of escaping." Flying. That was something that only airborne realm cultivators could do. With the two of them as inner energy realm cultivators, once surrounded, they would definitely die. However, even though the strength of Yihai City was very strong to them, they didn't shrink back because of this. It was true that Yihai City was strong, but there was something that had to be known. That was because the city before them was not small. Such strength was distributed throughout the entire city. In this way, the strength of this city would be weakened greatly. Song Qing suddenly said, "I heard another piece of news, but I don't know if it's true or not for now. Perhaps it will be of some use." Yijing'an was stunned. "What news?" "There is a clan with the surname Zhang in Yihai City, and it is a large clan. The Zhang clan's ancestor will have his 900th birthday in 8 days. At that time, even the city lord of Yihai City will attend the birthday banquet. 900th birthday banquet, TSK. Yijing'an clicked his tongue in wonder. There were no god martial realm cultivators in Yihai City, and he'd already investigated this clearly. Even if there were, they would surely be hidden extremely well. If it was like this, based on the 1,000-year lifespan of a prominent sage realm cultivator, 900 years old was already 1 foot in the coffin. However, Song Qing's words caused him to think of something. Chapter 299. You plan to sneak into the banquet and make a move? This is one of the ways, but it's not easy to sneak into the banquet. The people invited by the Zhang family are all powerful and influential people. If we put up the name of Yuan Zong, we might have some hope of getting in. Speaking up to here, Song Qing glanced at the other party and smiled. The problem is, do you dare to show the name of your sect? Yijing'an looked at the other party speechlessly. If he could show his name, many things would be easy to solve. Compared to Qin Shujian, players like them had the forum to communicate, so they could understand the prestige of the two words Yuan Zong in the cultivation world. A top sect with the battle strength of a celestial. It was no longer limited to one region or one prefecture. Even if they went to other prefectures, as long as they showed the name of Yuan Zong, they would be able to get some preferential treatment. However, showing one's name also had to distinguish the place. Yuan Zong had issued a mission for them to assassinate people from Marquis Qianshan's side. It was obvious that there was some deep hatred between the two sides. Yi Jing'an thought of the rumors that spread a few days ago. The matter of Marquis Qianshan sending people to assassinate the head of the Liang Mountain camp. The two matters were put together. The two sides were in a hostile state. This way. If he dared to show the name of Yuan Zong in Yihai City, he would be killed by the experts of Yihai City before he could even enter the banquet. Yi Jing'an was slightly annoyed. Song Qing's expression turned serious and said, "This time I met a few players from the same sect. Although the matter of the Zhang family's birthday banquet was not widely publicized, if you investigate carefully, you will know a thing or two. I'm afraid that we are not the only ones who have their eyes on the Zhang family. If things go wrong, we might be exposed. Exposing us won't do them any good, but do you have a way to enter the Zhang family? As far as I know, any aristocratic family will always have a few plebeians. We can start from this aspect." Song Qing smiled. For plebeians, it was undoubtedly those four things. In reality, he was also a rich second generation. He had also been a playboy before, so he was very clear about these things. As long as it was to their liking. Then it would not be difficult to get familiar with them or find an opportunity to sneak into the banquet. Hearing this, Yi Jing'an did not object. After a brief discussion, the two of them decided to start with the Zhang family's disciples. After all, they had paid a hefty price to come to Yihai City this time. Just taking 3 to 4 teleportation gates and spending a lot of time to get here, they had already spent a lot of money. If it was just to kill 1 or 2 true martial realm warriors or ordinary spirit martial realm warriors, it would be too much of a loss. He had to do it. Then let's do something big. Both of them saw hope at the Zhang family's banquet this time. While the players from Yuan sect were heading towards Thousand Mountains Prefecture, Qin Shujian was quietly waiting in Yuan sect. For him now, aside from accumulating life force, he also needed to silently cultivate the other 6 cultivation techniques. If he could shorten the gap between these 6 cultivation techniques and the Guiyuan ancestral canon, he would be able to save a lot of money when he leveled up. As for the mission that was issued earlier, Qin Shujian did not think that he would be able to defeat Qian Shanho with just a few players. After all, as long as the power existed, those NPCs that died at the hands of players would revive every 3 days. But every time they were revived, they would drop a level, which could be considered as weakening Qian Shanho's overall strength in a disguised way. Besides that, he believed that if a large number of people died, even if they could be revived later, it would inevitably cause a lot of chaos. For Qin Shujian, even if he could not deal with Qian Shanho himself, he would first use the players to annoy the other party. He could basically foresee, if the players really did make a move, there would definitely be a lot of chaos on Qian Shanho's side. At this point, it was enough to annoy the other party. Apart from the players, no one in this world knew better than him how great the potential of the players was. If it was not for his current strength that could suppress all the players, even Qin Shujian himself did not dare to establish a sect so openly. Moreover, he had even wantonly recruited players for his own use. This was a double-edged sword. If used well, the potential was endless. If not used well, the backlash was not something that anyone could bear. Apart from the commotion caused by issuing the original mission, Yuan sect was much calmer during this period of time. The second and third exploration of the new area. It had not completely begun. After the first harvest, all the spiritual items that were born had basically been taken away. The remaining ones that had not been born could not be completed in a short 10 days or 8 months. So, Yuan sect still sent people to guard there, not allowing anyone to enter. In Ehai City, in a side room of a restaurant, a group of more than 10 people were drinking and eating inside. There were also many women in revealing clothes accompanying them. The scene was very lively. As for this group of people, Song Qing and Yi Jing'an were also among them. Beside them was a woman accompanying them, and there were bright smiles on their faces. "Come, cheers! Drink a cup, drink!" From time to time, there would be people urging them to drink, and there would also be people who would touch the people accompanying them. Song Qing and Yi Jing'an did not want to appear out of the ordinary. Like the others, they hugged the women beside them and then toasted the people around them from time to time. However, although they drank a lot of wine, it was all refined by the two of them using their vital essence. They only maintained a slightly tipsy state and looked more realistic. Subsequently, the two of them vaguely looked at each other. Song Qing pretended to ask casually, Young Master Zhang, I heard that it will be the birthday of the Zhang family's ancestor in 2 days. I wonder what gifts you have prepared for him. Why don't you tell us and let us broaden our horizons?" As soon as he finished, immediately someone echoed, "That's right. The Zhang family is rich. As a direct descendant of the Zhang family, young Master Zhang must have collected some rare treasures. Let us broaden our horizons." Yes. Let us broaden our horizons." The people around him chimed in. The young man in the lead had an ugly expression. He sighed and said, "If you didn't mention this matter, then forget it. Since you mentioned it, then I won't hide it. Until now, I haven't found any suitable treasures to present to my ancestor." Hearing that, Song Qing smiled and said, "It can't be. With young Master Zhang's strength, it's not easy to collect treasures. Hey, with my strength, it's not difficult to collect treasures. But the difficult part is that this treasure can't be an ordinary treasure. It has to enter the ancestor's eyes." The young Master Zhang Wenshi first smiled proudly, then sighed and said, during this period of time, he had been worrying about this matter. Although Zhang Wenshi was a good-for-nothing playboy who only knew how to fool around, he also knew how important it was to show his face in front of his family's ancestor. No matter what. He was also a direct descendant of the Zhang family. If he couldn't take out something decent and lost face, then he wouldn't be able to live as comfortably as he was now. Hearing that, the others also nodded in agreement. Song Qing said, "I heard that Zhang Wenhua has collected a 7th rank prolonging pill as a birthday gift, but I don't know if it's true or not." Zhang Wenhua! Hearing this name, Zhang Wenshi instantly sobered up. He stared at Song Qing and said coldly, "Where did you get this news from?" It was as if he was shocked by the other party. Song Qing was stunned for a few seconds. Then, he stuttered and said, "I just heard it by accident. But I'm not sure if it's true or not." After hearing this, Zhang Wenshi's face darkened. Regardless of whether this news was true or not, he would treat it as true for the time being. Although he didn't know where the other party got the 7th rank prolonging pill, for the ancestor, a prolonging pill was enough to be called a treasure. After all, even if Zhang Wenshi didn't care about it, he knew that his ancestor's lifespan had reached a point where it didn't matter much. All these years, the Zhang family had been searching for treasures that could prolong life, hoping to prolong the ancestor's lifespan. One had to know. The Zhang family was able to have their current status. It was all because of this ancestor who was at the peak of the same realm. If the ancestor were to die, the Zhang family would fall by at least a few levels. Although it wouldn't sink to the bottom, it wouldn't be as glorious as it was now. As for those forces that were eyeing the Zhang family, they probably wouldn't be able to hold themselves back. If Zhang Wenhua really got a prolonging pill, then at the birthday, he would definitely enter the eyes of the ancestor. At that time, the other party would be able to suppress him by more than one head. Thinking of Zhang Wenhua who didn't get along with him, Zhang Wenshi's face darkened even more. Suddenly, the originally joyous atmosphere of the banquet also became gloomy. While things were going on here, There were also other players in Yinhai City who had their eyes on the Zhang family. I just received news that Song Qing has already made contact with Zhang Wenshi. The other party's target should also be the Zhang family's banquet, but I'm not sure if they will make a move at the banquet. Wang Jiu shared the news he had obtained. In front of him, it was the other two Yuan sect players, Su Kai, Zhao Hua. The two of them were both elite disciples of the Yuan sect and were relatively close to Wang Jiu. Adding the fact that their strength wasn't weak, the two sides hit it off and decided to join forces to complete the mission issued by Qin Shujian. Hearing that, Su Kai said in a deep voice, "If they want to do something at the banquet, they must be qualified to enter the banquet. Now that they have made contact with Zhang Wenshi, they must want to use his identity to enter the banquet." Speaking of which, he paused for a moment, then continued, "However, we have already taken a step ahead of them and have boarded Zhang Wenhua's ship. In terms of progress, we are one step ahead of them. If we are serious, we can be considered to have an advantage. Should we make a move and disrupt their plan?" Zhao Hua, who was on the side, asked. "There's no need, at least there's no need for now. If we disrupt them and Song Qing fights to the death, our ship will probably sink." Speaking of which, Su Kai changed the topic. "Maybe we can cooperate with them." Chapter 300. The Zhang family's ancestor's birthday. It was a big event for the entire Yinhai City. After all, a peak vision divine stage cultivator, even if he was nearing the end of his life, was still a powerhouse that couldn't be ignored. A cultivator of this level. Even if his blood and chi were to decline due to old age, his strength wouldn't decrease at all. After all, his cultivation had reached the spirit martial realm. What was important was divine sense. Although blood and chi could nurture divine sense, the decline of blood and chi wouldn't affect divine sense. So, once one's cultivation reached the spirit martial realm, the longer the powerhouse lived, the more terrifying they were. However, the Zhang family, which was supposed to be celebrating, was now in an earth-shattering uproar. A terrifying array directly covered half of the Zhang family's mansion, and a terrifying fluctuation spread out. Inside the array, it was a group of panicked Zhang family members, including the Zhang family's ancestor and the Yinhai City's city lord. However, now the two of them looked weak, as if they had suffered some injuries. Song Qing stood outside the array and shouted at Wang Jiu and the other two. "Wang Jiu, this time I offered the 4 directions ghost deity incense. The contribution points must be divided equally." "Got it," Wang Jiu replied impatiently, and then crushed another jade talisman, and another array covered the mansion. Under the superposition of the two arrays, in an instant, it turned into a terrifying killing array. "My Zhang family didn't offend you. Why are you attacking my Zhang family?" The Zhang family's ancestor looked at Wang Jiu and the others with an ugly expression. Beside him was Zhang Wenshi, who was already dead. This birthday celebration was supposed to be a good thing. Zhang Wenshi took out something and said it was ambergris, which could prolong one's life, and then lit it in front of everyone as proof. In the end, it was the so-called ambergris. It wasn't something that could prolong one's life at all, but a kind of poisonous incense. When the Zhang family's ancestor reacted, Wang Jiu and the others directly threw out a large array, covering half of the Zhang family's mansion. In the face of such a powerful formation, if the Zhang family's ancestor was at his peak, he might have a way to try to break the array by force. But now, the poisonous smoke seemed to be able to corrode a spirit god, making him unable to use 50% of his strength, and there was no possibility of breaking the array. Or it wasn't just him. In the entire banquet hall, as long as a cultivator had given birth to a spiritual deity, it would be difficult for them to escape this calamity. Wang Jiu sneered. "You can only blame yourselves for being too close to Marquis Qianshan." Finished speaking, the killing array exploded in an instant, and invisible waves spread out. Immediately, someone screamed and died. "Go!" When Wang Jiu saw this, he immediately ran out of the Zhang clan. As for Su Kai, Song Qing, and the others, they did not hesitate to escape. At this moment, the people of the Zhang family, who had been attracted by the sudden change of events, finally surrounded them. However, 95% of the Zhang family's experts were in the banquet hall. The remaining people who were on guard duty were not true experts. Although Wang Jiao and the rest were not very strong, they were still peak inner aura cultivators. When he was determined to escape, the others simply could not stop him. True essence erupted. More than a dozen Zhang family members screamed and fell to the ground, unable to get up. Wang Jiao and the others took this opportunity to directly leave the Zhang family's sphere of influence. Meanwhile, the commotion in the Zhang mansion also attracted the attention of the city guards. Everyone knew that the city lord of Yihai City was also in the Zhang mansion. He immediately dispatched troops and rushed in the direction of the Zhang family. In the city, suddenly it was chaos. As for Wang Jiao and the others, they took this opportunity to slip out of the chaotic crowd. Wang Jiao, you're leaving just like that. You're not doing things properly. Song Qing suddenly blocked in front of Wang Jiao, forcing them to stop. Wang Jiao frowned. What's the hurry? You have to go back and submit the mission to get the contribution points. When the time comes, you will naturally get your share. I want 50%. Impossible. Wang Jiao immediately refused. This time, we spent 12,000 contribution points on the exchange of the array. If we directly give you 50%, what's the difference between us working for free this time? Hearing this, Song Qing said in a deep voice, Don't forget, if it wasn't for my 4 directions ghost deity incense, your array could really kill a peak vision divine cultivator. What a joke. If it wasn't for my array, your 4 directions ghost deity incense would be useless. Tell me, how do you plan to split it? Hearing this, Wang Jiao didn't immediately speak. Instead, he looked at his mission progress and then said, This time, I killed a peak vision divine cultivator and 2 airborne realm targets. The contribution points I got are 30,000. I can give you 10,000 at most. The remaining 20,000 after deducting the cost is not much. 10,000 contribution points. Song Qing was silent for a moment. In the end, he shook his head and said, I want 12,000 contribution points. Don't forget that you've gained a lot of experience points this time. The experience points needed to advance by 1 stage is more than 2,000 contribution points. Just now, he clearly noticed that Wang Jiao had broken through to the 7th level of the true martial realm, the physical invulnerability stage. Okay, deal. After returning to the Yuan sect, I'll come to you again. Let's go. Song Qing nodded, then looked at Yi Jing'an on the side and left. 12,000 contribution points. After deducting the cost of the 4 directions ghost deity incense, there were still thousands of contribution points. When the time came, the 2 of them would divide it, and each of them would get 3 or 4,000 contribution points. It had only been 8 days since they arrived at Yihai City. They got thousands of contribution points. This progress of getting contribution points was much faster than doing other missions in the past. While hurrying, Yi Jing'an shook his head with some regret. It's a pity that I didn't get the power token from the Zhang family. Otherwise, I would have really made a lot of money this time. You still want to get the power token? If we were a little slower, there would be no one left. Song Qing was speechless. He could foresee that Yihai City would be in chaos soon. Even if the city lord of Yihai City was respawned in a few days, it would be the same. Someone dared to kill the city lord in public. This was just a mutant. If it wasn't a mutant, wouldn't it be true that the city lord would be dead forever? Moreover, he would drop a level with each death. For a peak vision divine cultivator, dropping a level would take at least several years or even decades of hard work. But this was enough to make the other party suffer. As for the Zhang family's great ancestor, it could be said that he was dead. He didn't have much lifespan to begin with. Now that he dropped a level with each death, the upper limit of his lifespan would drop another level. That old ancestor would probably die the moment he respawned. Thinking about this, Song Qing sighed. Since the city lord of Yihai City died once, it should be easier to kill him after his strength dropped. But after this, Yihai City is completely under martial law. I'm afraid it's impossible for us to catch him and take his life. While the others haven't caused too much of a commotion, let's go to the next place. Otherwise, once Marquis Qianshan's people become alert, it won't be easy to complete the mission. Let's go. The two of them disappeared into the starry night. Bang! With a slap, the table on the side turned into dust. In the main hall, everyone kept quiet out of fear. Marquis Qianshan's eyes were cold as he said indifferently, "Explain to this Marquis how a group of true martial realm cultivators could cause such a huge commotion in my Thousand Mountains prefecture. Even a vision divine cultivator could be assassinated. Reporting to the Marquis, there are too many mutants in the territory. That group of mutants is mixed with other mutants, and they have all sorts of strange methods. Even a vision divine cultivator wouldn't be able to escape if he wasn't careful. Did you find out where these mutants came from? I heard that these mutants came from Yuan sect." Yuan sect? Marquis Qianshan's eyes were cold. He didn't think that these mutants would come from Yuan sect. In just half a month, no less than 1,000 people under his command were assassinated. It affected 80% of the territory under his control and involved nearly 100 cities. Although they died in the hands of the mutants, they wouldn't really die. However, with such a large range, the shock caused by the aftermath would be extremely strong. After all, if it wasn't the mutants who did it mean that the people who were assassinated were really dead? This way, people's hearts would inevitably fluctuate. Originally, Marquis Qianshan had already sensed the threat of Yuan sect. That was why he sent a god martial realm cultivator with a sky decree to assassinate Yuan sect. What he didn't expect was, he used the sky decree in the life of a god martial realm cultivator but failed to kill Qin Shijian. The first assassination failed. Thus, he temporarily stopped the next step of the assassination. After all, with the first time, the other party would definitely be more vigilant in a short period of time. Moreover, with 2 doctrine artifacts protecting him, even a sky strike would be difficult to break through. Just as Marquis Qianshan was about to stop the assassination of Yuan sect, Yuan sect sent someone to take revenge. It had to be said. This time, Yuan sect's actions had caused a lot of turmoil. Marquis, in my opinion, the people who know mutants the best are also mutants. Why don't we issue a mission and let the mutants in Qianshan Prefecture deal with Yuan sect's mutants? At this time, a general stood up and said with a fist salute, "If that's the case, we will be able to save the effort of searching for other players. We will also be able to put an end to the negative effects that Yuan Zone's players will bring." Hearing this, Marquis Qianshan nodded slightly. This was the only way to deal with the mutants now. After all, although the mutants weren't generally strong, they were too difficult to deal with. There were many mutants in almost every place. There were traces of mutants in every force and even in every sect in the cultivation world. The infiltration of this race was too strong. However, it was impossible to uproot it completely. Just the fact that they were immortal was enough to eliminate the possibility of uprooting them. After that, another person spoke up. "Marquis, recently there was a mysterious swordsman who specifically chose real martial realm cultivators to kill, which also caused a lot of trouble. I wonder if we should take any action?" You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.